All right, welcome Scotty, welcome Rawld.
Thank you.
We got our special guest, Scott Vincent, or he likes to be called Scotty.
Scotty.
Is that correct? You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Beautiful. We got Gerald Seals.
Our first official guest, by the way.
Yeah,
Cool.
welcome.
I feel honored. Thank you.
You should. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome, guys. How you
Thank
doing?
you. I feel welcomed.
Yeah?
I hope so. I hope
Yeah,
so.
seriously.
Yeah, no, I feel good. I feel really good.
So you're up from LA, right?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I feel at home. I just hate LA. We were talking about that before the show, and I can't do it.
Yeah, it's jam-packed, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what's your biggest disagreement with LA, I should say?
Oh, it's the traffic.
Oh, okay.
I mean, and that's cookie cutter. Everybody says that, and everybody says it because it's true. It's horrendous. You know, it's like when I was telling Gerald before the show that if I leave at 6 in the morning, it takes me 15 minutes to get to work. But if I leave at 8 o'clock and I'm trying to battle traffic, it's an hour.
Oh man.
You know, and so yeah, it's inconvenient and it's stressful, but you don't really appreciate how much of your life gets sucked away.
Mm.
Like if you're awake for 12 hours and you're spending 2.5 hours in the car of your waking time.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Over the course of years, you're spending months in LA traffic.
Damn, that's weird to think.
Doing nothing
Well,
except honking your horn and being stressed out.
well, someone like you, I feel like you would try to utilize that time as much as possible. Do you listen to podcasts, or do you even read? Because I mean, it's dead stop,
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes. Yeah. So I don't read because that's unsafe. Yeah, I do. I listen to podcasts. Mostly I use it as an opportunity to check in with people up here.
Huh.
So like call friends and family that I don't get to see anymore because I'm living in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Oftentimes, like I'm pretty strategic. Like I don't like wasting time.
Yeah.
I don't like being in the car. Like it's just inherently stressful for me. It's funny because up until moving to LA, I loved like going on a long drive and going up to the mountains or even driving into the city was never that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's just so bad, so stressful all the time. It's like detrimental to I can feel my heart beating through my chest, and I'm like angry by the time I get to work, and so I'm pretty strategic. So I wake up early. I mean, and I wake up early for a whole bunch of other reasons.
Yeah.
But in doing that, I avoid most of the worst of it now, which is funny because I say that my least favorite part of LA is the traffic, but I've actually adapted to it fairly well. So maybe I'm just resentful and bitter.
So what makes it so bad? Is it like there's hella accidents? Is there just bad drivers?
It's just there's only so much space on the planet. You know what I mean? And there's too many people in Los Angeles. There's too many people in too small of a space. Public transport, like public transit's not that good. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If you want to get from, like Hollywood to the West Side, you either got to do like 3 bus transfers or 2 bus transfers and get on the subway. I don't even know what the tram. I've never taken it, so I don't know. But the bus system's not great. The train system's not great. And everybody, I don't know, man. It's like I was driving in Arizona. Mm-hmm. So Courtney and we went to Arizona for a week for a business trip for her. And I'm like, man, why is everybody letting me in when I put my turn signal on? Like why is, like I've got so much space in front of me and behind me. I have like a little bubble while I drive down the highway. And this is like traffic.
It's different.
It's like 8:30 in the morning on a Tuesday.
Wow.
And there's plenty of people on the road, but it's like a 6-lane highway each side. And so when you have more people that aren't stressed out with more space to move, everything's better. Yeah. And in Los Angeles, you got more people. When you got more people, more space, everything's better. But in Los Angeles, you have way more people. You got no space whatsoever. The roads are terrible. People don't know how to drive in the rain. So if it sprinkles a little bit and it hasn't rained in forever, then all the oil comes to the surface. It gets super slick. There's one accident. If you get one accident on like the 405,
oh God, it's over
in the morning. Traffic is done for the day.
Damn.
Like the whole day, traffic will be bad.
Damn.
So what would you say the best part of living in LA is?
Opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's again kind of cliche, but there's so many people and there's so much happening, and I think just as a byproduct of there being more of everything, it's kind of easier to like happen into an experience that's really cool, or happen into an opportunity, or meet the right people. So for like networking and, you know, for what I do, so I'm in school, so that's my favorite part, and that's the only reason I'm there, really. And just, I mean, I would be getting into sort of the dynamics of the school at that point.
Let's touch on what you do actually real quick, and then we'll get into that. Yeah. So what do you do, Scotty?
So I'm a PhD student in neuroscience at UCLA.
Okay.
So I'm the department I'm a part of is integrative biology and physiology, and I'm a chronobiologist and sleep researcher, which means I study circadian biology, the body's, you know, internal clocks that exist at every cell throughout your body, and have control over every growth and metabolic program throughout your person, right? So kind of important stuff.
Sounds really intimidating.
And then I also study the basic mechanisms of sleep. So you know, we know that sleep's important, but the hows and whys of sleep are just a total black box. Like the field in general has a couple of clues as to why sleep emerged as I mean, this is kind of an interesting thought experiment. You know, you think of everything that we've evolved to do as an adaptation, right?
Yeah.
So if everything is an adaptation, and that it gives us an opportunity to succeed in the environment that we're in, why? And most of what humans evolved around is, you know, procreating and eating and defending ourselves so that we could survive. Why would we adapt to be vulnerable and asleep for 10 hours a night? Right? Why would we adapt a biological function so that every single night we were unconscious and vulnerable to predators, we weren't collecting any food, and we weren't procreating?
Damn.
So there's a famous researcher that says, you know, sleep is, if sleep doesn't have a function, it's the biggest. Mic go out?
No, you're good.
Okay. If sleep doesn't have a function, it's the biggest mistake that Mother Nature ever made.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah,
it's a waste of time.
100%.
It makes us vulnerable. So all that said, the field sort of agrees that sleep is important. If you don't sleep, eventually you'll die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really that
number
simple.
one. Yeah.
And there are all sorts of things like reducing inflammation and conserving energy and increasing memory performance and all that kind of stuff that we know to be very important, but nobody really knows why sleep emerged, because every living animal sleeps.
Yeah.
But everything sleeps differently.
Yeah.
So my job, and one of my jobs as a researcher, is to help contribute to our overall understanding of why and how sleep happens, because we don't understand really why it happens, and we also don't really understand how it happens. Like somehow the brain is able to like keep track of how long you've been awake and magically make you sleepy, right? And people never think about this, but why is it that after I'm awake for 20 hours that I need to go to sleep more? Like, how does the brain, is it like a bean counter, you know what I mean? Where it's like every minute is a point, and it's accumulating a certain number of things, and then after a certain point. And then we kind of think that's how it works, because if you stay awake for a long time, you have these biological indicators that you have really high pressure to sleep. We know it is sleepiness, right? If I'm up for 24 hours, I'm a mess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything's kind of starting to go wrong. I'm not quite there mentally.
Delirious.
And I'm exhausted. My whole body is like yelling at me to sleep. Magically, when you sleep, whatever is creating that experience for you, it dissipates. It goes away.
Damn, dude, I've never thought about it like that.
And so that's a really interesting biological question that, you know, some of the 2017 Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to circadian biologists for their contributions to our understanding of circadian biology and how that affects sleep. But nobody at all has any clues about really how what we call the homeostatic process of sleep works, which is how the body sort of corrects to this homeostasis.
Well, that's one thing I've always been curious about, because I did it today. I was like, okay, I need to wake up at 6:30. Right. I set an alarm for 6:50 just in case, but right on the dot, with no alarm, I woke up at 6:30. And I've known other people who have like similar experiences, Do you have any insight on why, like how does that happen?
Yeah. I mean, we could go down. Yeah.
Let me ask a much more simple question.
Yeah. We'll get to that, I think.
Because this was one I'm sure everyone wants to know. How many hours should you get to sleep every night? I hear 8 hours. I hear 6 hours. You know, people like Beyonce stay up for like 3 days because they're working so hard.
Man.
Which is probably not good.
Beyonce not doing anything for her health if she does that. Okay, so everybody wants there to be like a very simple answer to that question.
Of course.
There isn't one, you know? And what I can say is that when you're younger, you tend to need more sleep. So the fact that high school students still got to like be at school by 8 a.m. and oh man, there's so many ways to go with this. All right, so can I give you some like base knowledge real quick?
Go on.
All right,
go for it.
So we do know that even though we don't know exactly why sleep occurs, we do know that there seem to be these two different systems that contribute to sleep happening, or that contribute to wakefulness happening. They basically determine whether we're active or resting. Okay. Those two systems are called the circadian process or the homeostatic process. Okay. The circadian process is really talking about, well, every single cell throughout your body, every single cell. I mean, you have something like 100 trillion cells. Every single one has this genetic clock, right? And I mean that literally. Like it has the ability to keep track of a 24-hour period on itself. You take cells out of a person, you put them in a dish, they will express certain genes in a rhythmic 24-hour period on their own, independent of any light. This is like the strongest evidence of our adaptation to this Earth, right? This particular environment.
Yeah.
What's the single most defining feature of our entire environment? It's our relationship to the sun.
I was gonna say, without light, they have a 24-hour clock.
Yeah, they do it on their own.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the biology of it is like such a trip. So basically, these proteins get expressed, and they go. I'm trying to keep this real simple. Basically, there are these molecules that bind together and accumulate in a particular position, and then once enough of them accumulate in one position, they enter back into the nucleus of the cell, and they suppress other gene expression, right?
Yeah.
And they accumulate. The time in which they accumulate happens predictably in 23.8 hours or 24 hours, depending on the person. So once you get to a certain point of having enough of this dimer in one place, certain genes get turned off.
Yeah.
And that the amount of time it takes to do that is predictably 24 hours.
Wow.
So shit is trippy, man. Yeah. Anyway, so you have these clocks, right? Throughout your body.
Yeah.
Every single cell. And these clocks are critical, like massively important for everything, right? They determine everything. They determine the timing of all of your hormonal programming, all of your metabolic programming, every growth program when you're in development, like every bit of it is locked in and determined by these clock genes, okay? This core molecular clock. So my question to y'all is, if everything can keep track of time on its own, how important is it that each of those clocks knows it's the same time? Right? Because keeping track of a 24-hour period is different than knowing that it's a particular point in that 24-hour period. So, right, you can have a clock and it can be set to the wrong time. It's still keeping track of a 24-hour period,
makes sense.
But its watch is set differently.
Yeah.
So if the three of us have our clocks at 3 different hours and we say show up at 8 a.m., 2 people are fucking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So the point is what's critical for human health is that the entire body knows that it's the same time of day. And I can get into some other stuff because this is my baby. You know what I mean? Like this is everything that I care about, and this is why I'm wearing these glasses right now, and I'll get into that later. But so the thing that controls all of these little tiny clocks in each of your cells is the activity of this one master clock in your brain, and part of your hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, right?
One more time.
Suprachiasmatic nucleus. So it's called the SCN. The SCN, right? And so in your eye, in the back of your eye, you've got your retina.
Yeah.
Okay. And on your retina, you've got different photoreceptors, right? You got rods and cones that help you see color and distinguish light from dark, and those things are critically important. But the eye also has non-visual photoreceptors, right? So these things that receive light, but we don't use that light to perceive our environment.
Oh, whoa.
Right?
Yeah.
So this trips a lot of people out. And this is where you and I were talking earlier about how some people in ophthalmology are maybe resistant to these new ideas because they went to med school, 30 years ago, and this information wasn't available to them then, and they're sort of ingrained in the dogma that they were taught.
Makes sense.
Right? They have this one, very narrow paradigm of the way the world works. No offense to the people you worked for.
No, of course.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just saying, like, I was going to go to med school. I was pre-med at UCSD. I was on track. I was killing it. I would have gotten into med school somewhere, and I had this this is way tangential.
Feel free, man. That's all we do here.
The reason I didn't go to med school is because I feel like most clinicians, not all clinicians by any means, most clinicians are trapped in this old genetic anatomical paradigm that limits their ability to receive new ideas.
100%.
And as a researcher, I'm constantly, like, I'm reading papers that got published yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, I'm reading stuff that has been that has been produced, in the last couple of months, that is incredibly cutting edge. So anyway, you have these two different receptors, and there's more, I think, but there's neuropsin and melanopsin. Right, melanopsin has been in the news a lot lately because of the whole blue light thing, right?
Yeah.
So melanopsin is activated by a narrow spectrum of blue and green light and some UV light, I think a little bit. And neuropsin receives UV light, which is this whole other thing. A lot of people think UV light is bad. Well, if it's bad, then why do we have a receptor in our eyes that is meant to receive it? And, whatever. We can get into that later. But melanopsin, in the presence of blue light, sends a signal. It's a retinal ganglion cell. And so it sends a signal directly to the SCN, right? Directly to your brain's master clock, right? Because, okay, so getting into a little bit of physics here. You have the visible light spectrum, everything from blue to red, right? Blue light is short wavelength, high energy light. Red light is long wavelength, low energy light. They interact with the atmosphere differently. So the sun never changes. The sun is doing its thing. I mean, the sun changes a little bit, but the type of light we get from the sun basically never changes. What changes is our relationship to it and the atmospheric conditions above us. So when the sun, when light is coming in, blue light scatters most easily, which is why the sky is blue, right? It interacts with molecules in the atmosphere most easily and scatters everywhere, right? Red light is a longer wavelength, and so it does not scatter as easily, which is why red light just comes straight through. And when the sun is at the horizon, right? That's why you can look directly at the sun when it's rising, but you can't when it's up in the sky, because the only light that's coming through is red and infrared light. That's why the sunsets look red, sunrises look red and orange. The sunrise this morning was beautiful, by the way.
It was nice.
I missed it.
That's why we woke up early this morning too.
That's right. So you have this pathway, right, through which your body interacts directly with your environment. And your environment tells you what time it is. That blue light suppresses melatonin. Because if you think about it, everything that we are, all of our biology is just an adaptation to the environment that we evolved in. Yeah. Right? Humans came out of Africa, right? And so in the middle of the day in Africa, it's like massive blue light. Massive blue light. When you're at the equator, the strongest daytime signal is a high spike of blue spectrum light, right? It's the most reliable daytime signal that you can give your body. So this master clock, when it receives this blue signal, or when in the absence of the blue signal, it generates melatonin, right? So when blue light is gone, in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, it begins to secrete melatonin, begins to activate the endocrinological system and secrete melatonin. Melatonin goes throughout the body, right? So, and that's true for a number of different hormones. So that means that over a 24-hour period, the hormones that coordinate all of your individual clocks, right, are determined by what's happening at the eye. Right? Shit's crazy.
Yeah.
So when you're on your phone at 10 o'clock at night and you've gotten those, I mean, you look at a what's known as a spectrogram, which basically just tells you the power spectrum of a light input. And it'll show, like, you know, red has this much power and blue has this much power. If you look at a spectrogram of any cell phone or laptop or computer or TV or fluorescent bulb or LED or anything like that, massive spike of blue light. So that means when you're looking at your cell phone at 10 o'clock at night, you're telling your body that it's noon on the equator.
Don't go to sleep.
Right. You're saying wake up, which gives this crazy mismatch. Like you have this mismatch then with the rest of your body because you're quiet, you're relaxing, you're not active, and all of a sudden you're telling your body that it's noon on the equator. And you are dramatically, like significantly fucking shit up.
So do you think over time, because like you said, we all adapt to these things, right? And that's the reason why we've adapted to this clock is because we've lived on this earth for God knows how long. Do you think over time with these new generations who are being exposed to cell phones and screens and stuff like this, eventually we're going to completely offset our clock enough to kind of throw us completely out of whack?
What do you mean by completely out of whack?
So I mean, like,
because we're way out of whack already.
So do you think it's like not necessarily far beyond repair, but where do you think we are as a culture right now?
Super fucked.
Super fucked.
Well, because if you think about this, right? People got to be at school at 8.
Yeah.
No matter what happens when they're on their phone and when they go to sleep, they got to wake up at a certain time.
Yeah.
So they might fuck themselves up throughout the day, but as far as like their schedule of when they have to do what they got to do, you'll be set by time.
But I think, isn't that the kind of whole point, though, is if we're waking up at these times, some of our cells and stuff are on that waking up at 8 o'clock time schedule. But since we're being thrown off by all these different signals, it's...
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. So that's just one part of how sleep happens, right? That's your body's ability to keep track of a 24-hour period. So I want to come back to that question and answer one other give a little bit more background information real quick, and then I'm going to come back to that because I think this will help. So you have this circadian process, which keeps track of a 24-hour period. If in your natural environment, when you're waking up with the sun, you're beginning to rest with the sun going down, right? That is really predictable. You have a really strong circadian signal because you're connected to an environment. You're connected to the natural turnings of the sun, okay? The bad version of that is you wake up at 7 a.m. because you got a job, right? The sun is already up by the time you get in the car. You missed the sunrise. You drive to work. You get to work. You sit under fluorescent bulbs until 5 o'clock at night. You're not connected to the environment at all. You're not getting any real sunlight. You get off of work. Sun's still up, right? You drive home. Sun's beginning to set. You get inside. You turn the TV on. You got all the lights on in the house. So all day long, you're giving your body the signal. It's noon. It's noon. It's noon. It's noon. It's noon. And what happens over time is you get massive dysfunctions in your hormone function, like massive dysfunctions. You know what I mean? Like we can go into mitochondrial health in a little bit, and I think that's really, that's something that I think is the most important part of medicine right now that nobody's talking about. But so that's one component of it. The other component of it, your body, we talked about this earlier, your body can magically keep track of how long you've been awake. And that seems to be a completely separate process from your ability to keep track of what time it is, right? Because whether or not it's, 8 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, if you've been awake for 30 hours, you're tired. But if it's 3 in the afternoon, you're probably less tired than if it's midnight, right? Yeah. You've been awake. I don't know. I pulled a couple all-nighters in my day. And once I get, some sunlight on my eyes and it's 10, 11, noon, whatever, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm not good, but I'm all right.
Through.
I'm better, right? But as soon as it gets dark, out.
Yeah.
It's cookies, bro. Like I'm like no chance whatsoever.
Yeah.
So those two processes interact. And when those two interact, they determine whether you're going to go to sleep or you're going to be awake or everything in between. Okay? There's all kinds of problems. So this is finally getting back to Gerald's question. How long should we sleep each night? Right? So it's very complicated because it's based on your personal experience. It's based on your age. It's based on your overall health. It's based on where your family came from. It's based on the lighting environment that you exist in. Right? It's based on how much exercise you get, right? So to be able to say it's based on your diet, right? Like to be able to say like you should get 8 hours of sleep every night. That's probably close to an average if you think about everything for all people.
Yeah.
And if you are actually getting 8 hours of sleep a night, you're doing way better than 99.9% of America.
The rest of us, right?
Seriously.
Really though, because it's. So I was going to say this earlier. If you get on your phone, which basically everybody does, something like 5 million cell phones in the United States of America or something.
Damn.
No, it's more than that, 50 million or something crazy.
It has to be more than 5 million.
Yeah,
Sure,
that number's wrong. There are a lot of cell phones in America. That is my formal opinion. If you're looking at your cell phone at 10 o'clock at night, your body's not producing melatonin until midnight. So melatonin, aside from being this sleep hormone, it's also the most powerful antioxidant that your body has to offer you. So in a natural world, you should be, if the sun sets at 7, you should be producing melatonin by 8, 8:30, 9. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And you should have melatonin production go until first light, 6 a.m. So we're chronically depriving ourselves of the strongest antioxidant that the body has to offer every night. By 3 or 4 hours. We're cutting our dosage in half every single night. You wonder why diseases like, Parkinson's, Huntington's, multiple sclerosis, cancer, diabetes, obesity, schizophrenia, depression, any cardiovascular disease, all of those things are worse than they were last year, than they were the year before that, than they were the year before that. It's because we have a fucked up relationship to our environment. We spend trillions of dollars on medical research based on this genetic anatomical paradigm that has basically yielded nothing. And I mean that, like, think about it. What diseases can we treat?
A cold.
Really though, like it's, and
cold.
you ask this question to clinicians, and they're like, "Oh, there's sickle cell anemia, maple syrup urine disease, like a couple of other things that are like genetic, and we can predict them based upon genetics." But like cardiovascular diseases, we're not treating that. We give people blood thinners, right? We're not treating the heart. We're treating blood.
We're treating the symptoms,
right?
Yeah.
Like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis.
Well, wasn't there just like sorry to cut you off.
No,
wasn't there just a breakthrough in like the HIV? There's like something in HIV where they're able to cure someone.
Oh, interesting.
Recently.
Okay. So autoimmune disease is a whole other
way different field.
It's not different. It's definitely involved. I'd be interested in reading more about that because I don't know if, frankly, I don't believe it.
It's like the second person that they've ever supposedly cured.
Yeah.
But you look into it after.
Okay. Yeah,
sure.
I mean a sample size of 2 for me for
Out of millions of people.
Yeah, I mean really though, like for a disease that affects hundreds of thousands of people every year.
Yeah.
Like that sounds like an accident. Right. And I'm not saying that those researchers aren't making headway. Or that what they found isn't important, or that person's life hasn't been changed in an amazing way.
Yeah.
But there's no statistical power there.
Makes sense.
Do it for one person. Okay. It's like,
Cure 1,000, then I'll...
Right. You know what I mean? Like show me something that removes the disease without affecting any other part of their health negatively and does it for 100,000 people.
Yeah.
And so my point is that like these things are worse every year.
Yeah.
And we spent trillions of dollars in researching them. And it's not that people aren't trying hard to, figure this stuff out. It's that we've got a broken paradigm where our relationship to medicine is fundamentally flawed. The original question, the sort of premise of all of the research that we do is off. You know, and there's a researcher by the name of Dr. Doug Wallace that, you know, I and a lot of people that I look up to think are going to get the Nobel Prize in medicine in the next couple of years, because the work that he's doing, he's able to predict diseases like Alzheimer's, right? He's able to predict diseases like diabetes.
By looking at what?
By looking at mitochondrial health, which is this whole other thing. So I'm gonna pause that for just a second, because I still don't feel like I've answered your question. I'm kind of proud of myself that I keep
bringing yourself back in.
Yeah, it's good for me. I mean, you know that I can kind of.
Oh yeah, I love it. That's why I wanted to have you on the show, man. Because like I'm like that bro. Too, you know.
It's good, yeah.
Once you get rolling, it's passion. It's passion.
Yeah. I mean, I am. I'm really like my whole. I'm very really. I put my life into this.
One thing I want to say before you continue is I love how that everyone in general, me and you included, are concerned with who's going to win the Grammys and all this stuff. And then we got someone like Scotty who's like, oh, we got the dude going to win the Nobel Prize coming up. That's dope. That's cool.
Way more meaningful.
Exactly. That's something we should.
World.
Yeah. If we all could orient that way, imagine how it would be.
Man. Yeah, I mean that's a tall order though. Yeah. You know, it's you know, I wish personally that was the case, but. You know, I'm not at all trying to be like pretentious or anything like that, but it takes a lot to get to a place where you can appreciate those sort of advances.
Yeah.
Not that you can't appreciate the consequence of them, but like if somebody had said something like that to me 6-7 years ago, I might have like feigned interest or like, you know, whatever, but I wouldn't have understood why it was meaningful, why what that person was doing was meaningful. You can only sort of understand it if you have taken the time to educate yourself up to a baseline that you get the weight of the discovery.
Yeah.
Which is like, I mean, people spend their whole lives studying like one tiny little part, like one type of cell in one part of the brain in one species. You know what I mean? There are people who dedicate 30, 40, 50 years. Damn. And this is part of why the anatomical approach to disease, I think, is just fucking wrong. You know, we have people who are spending hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. Brilliant people with incredible drive, incredible work ethic, and just incredible commitment. We got nothing to show for it.
Damn.
We got nothing to show for it.
It's like they're working on the wrong stuff.
Yeah, completely. Because the premise is wrong. Right. So okay. My final answer to your question is that whatever amount of sleep you're getting right now, you should get more of. Huh. That's really what it comes down to for me. I think that's safe. That's a safe recommendation for basically everybody.
Yeah.
There are certainly people who are already doing a good job. Maybe the best way is to share through my anecdote. Like I wear glasses dorkier than this at night. Like I put on some frames that are deep red that block all red and that block all blue and green light by a company called Raw Optics, and I put those on when the sun goes down. And I've got only incandescent. Well, I've got one fluorescent. I just moved into a new apartment. I've got one fluorescent bulb that I'm trying to swap out, but I got all incandescent bulbs throughout the rest of my house. You know what I mean? So it's all amber lighting. It's so comfortable in there, man. It's like so.
It's welcoming.
It's so welcoming, man. And as we know intuitively, like we walk into a space that's sort of like yellow tinted and like amber lit, and there's something very just like naturally inviting about that. We walk into a Target and it's like, ugh,
yeah,
can't see anything.
I'm gonna have to relight my little bachelor pad.
Yeah, I mean, really. So like I go to bed I try to go to bed at about 10 o'clock every night. Okay, and I try to wake up with the sunrise every morning. So for the, you know, like 8 hours, 9 hours that I'm in bed, if I've got good sleep efficiency, then that means that I'm sleeping for 7.5 or so hours, which is not as much as I would like. I go to great lengths to track my sleep. This is actually by a company called Oura Ring. You can maybe see inside it. There's a little infrared camera and like gyroscope inside, so it keeps track of motion.
Oh, that's sick.
Like blood, vascular constriction, and blood pressure. And so I got an app on my phone, and I'm all the way.
Dude, I love it, man. This is amazing.
I got a little app on my. See, I slept like shit last night, but it shows you like which stages of sleep that you were in.
Oh wow!
And it shows you your sleep efficiency and all that, and your sleep score overall, which was terrible. And then it shows you your readiness for the day based on your blood pressure and your heart rate variability and all that. You can click through that if you want.
No, you get it.
Yeah,
That's wild.
But
Yeah.
it's so
all off that ring, it calculates all that.
Yeah.
Shit.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah.
How much, if you don't mind me asking?
So this was a gift from my girlfriend's mom. It's $300.
That's an accurate gift, though. Like, talk about pinpoint, like, something you would like.
Oh, she's the one, dude.
Out the
Even
park.
Mom's getting
Nailed
dope gifts.
Yeah.
That's sick.
I may have dropped a hint, you know what I mean?
But still, right?
But it's really,
damn.
I think that tools like this, if utilized correctly, can give you meaningful insights into what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Because you can put little tags on each day of like, oh, I had coffee late, or I had a late meal, or I exercised or I didn't exercise, or whatever. And then you can look at trends in your sleep. So when I had coffee afternoon, I had a sleep score on average of less than 65 or something like that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that, and so as a result, like I wake up and I watch the sunrise.
Yeah.
As often as I possibly can, and there are very specific benefits of that.
Well, it kind of sets you up for a successful day.
For sure.
And not to mention, I was telling Gerald, too, it's like you feel like not only are you getting more hours, you feel like ahead of schedule. You're like, oh, this is sick. Because just for kind of a background for this podcast specifically, we woke up early because I was talking to Scotty. I was like, oh, when do you want to do it? He was like, preferably right after the sunrise. And he wasn't kidding. So when he's talking about all this stuff, like he's dead serious.
Like shit, I just got back from Florida, bro.
Yeah.
I'm tired. What are you doing?
Jet lag is a whole other thing.
But it was nice because I don't know if these are incandescent bulbs that I have in my house, but I have the hue lights where you can change the colors. Yeah. But either way, when I wake up.
Even worse.
I mean, yeah.
Either way, I have it set to like kind of an orange, yellow hue.
Right.
So this morning specifically, like I looked out the window and the lights inside kind of matched that. And it just gave me this like feeling. I was like, damn, this is like really nice. I could do this all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to. I'm gonna try though.
Yeah. I mean, it's to me, I think it's the single most the easiest thing that somebody can do to really revolutionize their health. You know, is improve their relationship to the sun. It doesn't cost you anything. It's not gonna, if anything, it's gonna make you more productive. Most people are gonna become more productive as a result of it, right? Just because the schedule change allows you to do things like miss traffic, and it encourages you to wake up early. And people who wake up early tend to be more productive throughout the day. And I don't have any sort of like afternoon crash, you know what I mean? Like I'm good all day long because I get like, so I work in a lab, but I do a lot of grant writing. So whenever I can, I'm up on the roof, just sitting on the roof, writing on my laptop, getting sun exposure.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like for lunch breaks, people should get outside. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a whole other thing about the light that we exist under, changing glucose absorption and changing insulin sensitivity, which is a whole, like the rabbit hole goes deep, bro. So if you like, man, it's have to be like a 4-hour podcast.
Let's do it, man.
I'm ready. I'm
ready, man.
I'm down, bro. Let's do it.
Man, so it's your body responds to different lighting environments in different temperatures. You know, you are able to produce energy in different ways based on the environment that you're in, and that's why no one diet is successful for everybody. Because the success of a diet is dependent upon your environment, it's dependent upon your ancestry, and it's dependent upon your current health. Okay? Because, all right, so I'm gonna back up a little bit. The current medical paradigm goes a little bit like this. It's anatomical and it's genetic. So some 500 years ago, people started studying very specific portions of the body, right? And that has matured into the medical field that we have today. You've got specialists you got a neurologist, you got nephrologists, you got cardiologists, the list goes on. And there's this assumption that if something goes wrong with my head, I should go see a neurologist, right?
Yeah.
But that's never been proven. There's no evidence to support that that's how we should approach medicine. If there's something wrong with your head, it's equally likely, it's perfectly possible. And this is all straight from again, Dr. Doug Wallace, who's the leading mitochondrial researcher on the planet. Dude is amazing. Like I absolutely look up to him and think he is the greatest thing to happen in medicine in the last 100 years.
Wow.
That's sick. I'm gonna look into him.
He is quietly revolutionized and patiently, man. He's been doing the same research for 45 years.
Wow.
And like not getting the recognition that he deserves. Anyway, so it's just as likely that there's something systemically wrong with your body and that your head is just susceptible to what's going wrong.
Huh.
And so you can study the head as much as you want. You can study the brain as much as you want. You'll never figure out where the headache is coming from because it's not originating in the head. Okay. So and it's the same thing with it's the same thing with the heart. It's the same thing with the rest of your body, liver, pancreas, whatever. Like it's equally possible that something's going wrong with the entire body and that it's being felt or that it's presenting itself because the liver is weaker or somehow more susceptible to that damage.
Wow.
As an example.
Yeah.
So there's something wrong there, right? There's very obvious flaws with that paradigm. The other paradigm that we have is this genetic paradigm, which is, so Mendel, he was investigating, like 500 years ago, also was investigating pea plants. And he found that a subset of genes were passed down in this very specific way. It's Mendelian genetics, that you have 2 copies of each gene. Your mom has 2 copies, your dad has 2 copies. They have you, and you get some combination of the copies that they had. Mm-hmm. And fly researchers, people who do research in Drosophila and flies, found that all of the different, anatomical parts of the fly were carried on these genes. And so they said, bam, we figured it out, right? Like humans are flies, mice, humans are genetic creatures. Every anatomical feature that we have can be predicted by our nuclear genome, right? So the DNA that we hear about all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's in the nucleus. And so people thought, man, we got it figured out, right? Like I know that this combination of codes, these genes in this order, mean that Travis is going to look like this and have a liver that does this and have these molecules available to him at these parts of his body, and his brain is going to develop in this way. And that's great. But that only is the anatomy, right? So Travis's anatomy could be perfectly fine, and he could be dead. Travis, like you can look at a cadaver. Everything is there.
Yeah.
Everything necessary for life under that paradigm is present. What's missing?
Huh. I have no idea.
I
Energy.
was gonna say energy, right? Shit. I mean, I was gonna say the soul. Actually, that's what I was.
I mean, well, now you're getting into sort of the human intuition about these things. Is we know that for anything to be alive, it has to be animated in some way.
Yeah.
And that animation comes from energy. We don't study energy in medicine, right? Like we study anatomy.
The basic thing that makes things live.
Right.
Damn.
So interestingly enough, so all anatomical features, and I don't just mean like a nose and an ear, but like all the way down to, at the systems level and then at the cellular level and the molecular level, all of those things are part of your anatomy, just at different scales.
Yeah.
All of that exists and is determined by your nuclear genome. Okay? In every single cell, in addition to having this genetic clock in your nuclear genome that determines the timing of everything, you also have mitochondria. Okay, so mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell, so to speak.
Take it back to the basics.
Right. They're the powerhouses of the cell. Their job is to convert stuff that has been pulled off of food and transported by blood and turn it into ATP. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is just the currency of the cell. It's what, you generate ATP, and then that ATP is used to catalyze different functions. It is used to make sure that DNA transcription happens and cellular repair happens and cellular recycling happens and all of that. Every cell has somewhere between many hundreds and a couple thousand mitochondria within it. Within it.
Damn.
100 trillion cells.
Damn.
We're talking about like
mitochondria.
10 quintillion mitochondria throughout the body.
Shit.
Okay? Think about that for a second. And think about that every single one of these mitochondria, they've got their own genome.
Damn.
They've got their own DNA. And they are solely responsible for producing every bit of energy that your entire body needs and uses. And they are an ancient form of bacteria that we have a symbiotic relationship where they literally evolved inside of us.
Damn.
At the cellular level.
They cause us to pretty much live.
Yeah, there's a book by Nick Lane called The Vital Question that talks about the origins of life. We think about like, you know, what the big question in biology is how.
Yeah.
Right? How did life happen? Why is it that us as multicellular organisms have been able to, and you know, all the things that we evolved from, and all the different mammals and other animals on the planet, all these eukaryotic cells, species, how did this happen to us, and why didn't it happen to the rest of bacteria, these single cell organisms, right? And there's a whole bunch of different theories about that. We don't need to go into it, but what matters is that these bacteria, the current theory is these bacteria at some point were like literally just one cell entered inside of another cell and provided energy that allowed this cell to develop more complicated functions.
Damn.
And from that came the nucleus and the ribosomes and like all of that.
Just kept going.
And one time.
Damn. Talk about destiny.
Freak accident, one time. And everything that is multicellular evolved from that one instance.
Damn. Literally one time, because one cell.
Shit.
Yeah.
One time. Shit.
One time.
So everything that's living?
Everything that's multicellular.
Everything that's multicellular.
multicellular.
Because it started in
my
one
bad.
cell, one mitochondria.
Yeah.
Boom.
Sheesh.
Talk about a big bang.
I was gonna say, I took the word right out of my
Seriously.
mouth. I had a real big bang.
So this kind of, you know, going back to current medical paradigms,
tingles.
right? Current medical paradigms say that it's about anatomy. It's about genetics.
But that's the byproduct
But
of the...
right, anatomy and genetics don't predict energy, right? Dr. Wallace has shown over and over and over again that he can predict somebody's disease likelihood on a very specific level based on something called percent heteroplasmy, which is the percentage of your mitochondria in a part of your body that have mutations or DNA damage.
Dude,
Damn.
my mind is getting blown right now.
Well, I was gonna say this. You say he doesn't get that much recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Is this because he could possibly fuck over the medical
100%.
field?
People are worried about their positions.
You know what I mean?
Can't
Think
you-
about how much money.
You can't sell the sun.
Shit.
Soundbite that right
Really,
now.
I mean,
You can't sell the sun.
It's really that simple.
Dude.
Like his paradigm, this paradigm, and it's not just his.
Write
you know,
that down.
Yeah.
Nick Lane and Robert O. Becker and John Ott and a whole bunch of other, you know, revolutionary scientists that I hope someday will get the. And so a lot of this information comes to me from a guy named Dr. Jack Cruz, who's a neurosurgeon out of New Orleans. He has found a way to bring a lot of this information together
And package it. That's
and
easily
package it
digestible.
in a way that is really changing people's lives.
Yeah.
Like I sort of went down this rabbit hole as a function of hearing a couple of talks that he gave in Vermont over the course of a couple of years. And he was a dentist turned neurosurgeon, so hell of a career right there alone. And then, you know, was doing spine surgeries and all that, and went up to give a talk at a conference, and he weighed like 300 pounds, and he stood up and he broke his leg.
Oh, shit.
And he had a couple of people who came to him and, you know, recommended some books and told him, I'm butchering his story, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is he got on the paleo diet, right?
Yeah.
And he gained a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
Gained a bunch of weight.
Explain paleo diet for.
So the paleo diet is the paleo community is this community of people that suggest that in order for humans to achieve optimal health, we should eat in the way that our ancestors did.
Yeah, kind of like before manufacturing food and stuff like that.
So it's, you know, a lot of people take it as just like no grains.
Yeah.
Right. But a real paleo diet is actually like fairly complicated because it's about your latitude and it's about your genetics. And, you know, so people in Africa were eating very different things at the equator than, you know, especially during the summertime, than like people in Northern Europe would be eating in the winter.
Makes sense.
Right. You can't grow shit in Iceland in November. So they subsisted on animal fat entirely. Right. They ate all animal products for like 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
And they adapted to that. Right. Their mitochondria adapted to that. So he went on this paleo diet, gained a bunch of weight. And then basically the short and long of it is he started introducing light into his diet and came up with this thing called the leptin prescription. Leptin is a hormone involved in telling you that you're full. And another thing called the cold thermogenesis protocol. And anyway, these ideas revolutionized his life. He lost something like 100 pounds in 4 months.
Damn.
Whoa.
And aside from that, like experienced a massive array of other health benefits as a function of that. And he's been able to provide those same sort of results on a deeper level, even to a huge number of people. Because part of the paleo community is not inherently wrong.
Yeah. But
there's something there for sure. But they missed the mark because they are more concerned with a diet than they are with a lifestyle. They're more concerned with diet than they are with environment.
Well, I think the word diet in general is kind of very misleading because the way I've been thinking about diet recently, especially after talking to you a few times, is diet goes down to things you listen to, things you eat, the things you do. Diet is your lifestyle in general. Yeah. Because everything you take and everything you see is technically getting taken in by your body. I'm looking at you, so my diet right now is consistent of raw. You know, as weird as that sounds, but it's true. So it's like I think that's where the kind of one of the roots of the problem is.
I've never looked at it as a diet as your surroundings and that deep. I'm like, oh, it's whatever you eat. It's what you drink.
Well, it's easy. It's easy to think about that. Yeah. Right. Because it's you interact with it, and there's such a wide variety of types of food and qualities of food. It's really easy to make this connection, whether it be correct or not, that quality of food and amount of food is going to determine overall health, especially because there's some parts of that are true. If you eat a ton of canola oil, you're going to get fat. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if you just jug a bunch of fucking like, like sunflower oil and you're like munching on candy all day long, like you're not going to be in a good position regardless of where you live, right? But it's kind of like there's this guy Matt Maruca. I'm gonna just keep dropping names all day long because these people have been really influential to me. There's this guy Matt Maruca, and other people I guess have made this analogy too. But he's the owner of this company, Raw Optics. 19-year-old kid, I think. 18-year-old kid. Genius. Wow. Way smarter than me. And he talks about mitochondria like an engine, right? So the job of the mitochondria, going back to their job is to produce energy. They don't just, they can actually produce energy on their own without food, but their job is to react hydrogen with oxygen, right? And then create water and heat. And as a consequence of that also produces ATP. Mitochondria also produces that energy currency of the cell. So it's a hydrogen-based engine, just like a car. You know what I mean? Like it takes glucose, carbohydrates, and fat with carbon-bonded hydrogen, and it strips the hydrogen off, and it uses that to create energy, right? So the food that we take in, the specific type of food that we take in, affects the energy that we create. But so the mitochondria's job is to create energy throughout the entire body. Okay. So I kind of lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? There's a couple different ways.
You were talking about the guy the Raw Optics guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Matt Maruca talks about them like engines. Those are the engines of our body. Yeah. So concerning yourself with food is like having a really nice car and not caring at all about the engine upkeep, but always putting 93 octane in it. At the end of the day, the quality of fuel that you provide yourself will matter, but not nearly as much as
the engine itself.
Like if you have a blown head gasket, doesn't matter what kind of fuel you put in your car, man. If you are missing spark plugs, it doesn't matter what kind of gas you put in your car, because the engine itself is non-functioning or is misfunctioning.
Yeah.
So concerning yourself with the specific type of food you eat is important, but not nearly as important as when you eat, because that's a signal that you give your circadian clock, and how much light you get. It's just not.
Okay, well, so I guess a good question would be, so people hearing this, I think the first thing would be, okay, well, how do I take care of my mitochondria? What can I do? What practices can I put in place to get me there? Because I know you have these glasses on and you have these other things in practice, the way you eat.
Right.
If there's an easy way to be like, oh, we'll start with this, start with that, start with, you know?
Yeah, I think the first major action I would recommend for everybody is improving your sleep, because melatonin is an antioxidant that helps prevent the replication of damaged mitochondria. So basically, melatonin are responsible for repairing your mitochondria. Let's just keep it simple like that, right? So if you're not sleeping well, your mitochondria are going to age rapidly. You're going to have more mutations in your mitochondria that are going to be replicated. And again, if you have damage and mutations to your mitochondria, and you increase your percent heteroplasmy that I was talking about earlier, which is just the percentage of your mitochondria that are damaged, you're increasing your incidence of disease. You're increasing your likelihood of that tissue failing, right? And so here's the thing, just briefly, think about the 10 most prevalent diseases in the US, and something like 8 of them are about your head or your heart, right? It's heart failure and Alzheimer's, dementia, and all those other things. Humans, what makes us special, no, I'll go back. Gorillas, what make them special is that all of their mitochondria are preferentially located in their skeletal muscle. So they're massive, right? They're massive.
Wow.
The reason that we don't have, massive skeletal muscle is because we preferentially keep our mitochondria in our heart
and our head.
And our head.
Damn.
Wow.
So when you have an environment that is destroying mitochondria systematically, the two things that are going to be affected first are the heart and the head. And you look at the 10 biggest killers of Americans just as a subpopulation, and almost all of them are about your heart and your head.
Damn.
That's crazy.
That's huge. Wow.
So there's a lot you can do, but the most important thing is fixing your sleep.
Yeah.
Do that first. And some people, you might think you're sleeping good, but blackout curtains, blue blocking glasses at night, off your cell phone, off your TV, off your laptop. Sunsets, turn it off. Sucks. A lot of people don't like it. And at the same time, if you're really asking about how you can optimize your health, and that really is what's most important to you, because that's not what's most important to most people. And I have to accept that. That's challenging for me sometimes to have friends and family who are like, oh, I don't feel good. And I'm like, hey, you should do this thing. And they're like, nah.
Yeah.
Because I care very deeply about the people in my community. And I don't have, I don't have a lot of money to offer. I can't, provide a whole bunch of resources other than this knowledge. And so it's challenging when it's like, hey, I know how to help you. I know how to help you. You know what I mean? Like I will go so far as saying, I promise I can help you.
Yeah.
And then being like, I don't want to stop watching TV.
Yeah.
That's mad frustrating.
Yeah.
That's mad frustrating. So the thing that I would recommend, improve your sleep. Blackout curtains on the windows, blue blocking glasses, get to bed, but in bed by 9, 10 o'clock, wake up every morning with the sunrise, go outside, watch the sunrise, the specific transition of near and infrared light to more full spectrum lights and UVA, and then UVA and UVB as the sun goes up above you to solar noon. That transition is excellent that is particularly adept or particularly equipped at telling your body what time it is. Telling your body that it's time to transition from nighttime to daytime. So that would be my only recommendation, because I'm kind of hesitant to recommend past that at some point, because people tend to get overwhelmed. You know, if you want to go all the way, like you need to get your whole genome sequenced. You need to find out your mitochondrial haplotype to find out where your ancestors came from, so that you can figure out how coupled your mitochondria are, so you can figure out what environment they exist best in. So I'm from Northern Europe primarily, and so my ancestors did really well in a cold environment. My mitochondria are uncoupled. That means that they create a lot of heat for every unit of energy that they produce, right? So I do really, really well in cold environments with UV light. So I take cold showers.
Oh.
Straight, and I hated them at first. But I start at your feet with like lukewarm water, then sort of slowly go all the way up the body, make it a little bit colder, slowly go all the way up the body. Now I take 30-minute cold showers.
Sheesh.
And that's just like, I finally just in the last week gotten to that point. So, and what's happened is like my energy level is through the roof, bro. Like it burns fat at the same time to keep you warm. And so all in all, it's like such an amazing thing for you. But it's not just about where you are. It's not just about where you came from, and it's not just about the lighting environment, and it's not just about what you eat, but it's all of those things, which is why this is such a tough pill for especially Americans to follow, because we've been indoctrinated by this belief system that if something's wrong with you, you need to take a pill, right? You need to do this. And because we like instant gratification, we like things to be given to us. We like things to be simple. And the reality of it is your body is the most complicated thing on the planet. As far as we know, it's the most complicated thing in the universe, right? So to expect that
to be fixed by a
the
pill.
thing that's going to fix you is, an SSRI for your depression that's going to change serotonin activity throughout your entire brain in a non-selective way, that's going to fix your depression. I think intuitively we look at that and we're like, really?
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, that's like I evolved, like humans have been evolving at least for the last like 2.5 million years. Every single, you look at, there are certain types of algae that are 2.5 billion years old, and they have circadian clocks in them.
Damn.
Everything, every plant, every animal has a circadian clock. Everything on this planet that has a relationship to the sun has a clock inside of it. And the reason that particular algae had this clock inside of it is because when the sun was out, it shouldn't be dividing its cells and replicating its DNA, because the sun would destroy the DNA. So when the sun was out, it went below water to replicate its DNA.
Wow.
So it had to have this relationship to the sun, this very intelligent relationship to the sun, so that it could survive. And humans are the same way. We need to know what time it is so that we can do the specific things that protect us from our environment, that allow us to capitalize on what's available on our environment and survive. And so when you take a bunch of people and you disconnect them from their environment and you give them a pill that costs a couple $1,000s a year, you are very, very clearly focusing on capitalism. You're very clearly focusing on personal gain. And you are simplifying the human body to the point of absolute stupidity.
Yeah. Wow. Dude, that's huge. This is... My mind's blown right now.
I got 2 more things I need to know.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I know you.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm going a whole different
No, it's
realm.
fine. No. I need direction, because otherwise I'm just going to blah, 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 blah.
Sleep paralysis, bro.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one.
What the hell is going on when I wake up and it's happened to me like 2 or 3 times where I'm like, I know I'm woke, but I can't move anything. It freaks me the fuck out.
That's happened to me
I don't know if it's because I'm eating the wrong shit. I don't know if it's because I smoked the wrong stuff. I don't know what's going on, but it's freaky.
Yeah, it could very well be due to prescription drugs that you're taking or alcohol consumption. So those are called, it's called sleep paralysis. And what happens is that the way sleep occurs in every human is that it's cyclical. So you have stages of sleep each night, You getting into that, Trev?
Yeah, I'm cracking open my box.
Yeah, you brought us some treats
yeah,
too.
okay,
We got to get into this.
Okay, so this is by a company called H-Factor. This is hydrogen infused water. So this is water that has hydrogen infused to it, and hydrogen is an antioxidant that helps protect mitochondria from the damage of free radicals. And the thing is, you got to drink it quick.
Oh,
you got to put it back. That's because hydrogen is infused into it, and as a consumable, it diffuses, right? And so part of the reason it comes in this vacuum sealed bag is because if you wait too long, all the hydrogen will just leak out. So,
bottoms up. He wasn't kidding when he said drink it fast. Chug it.
Chug.
Yeah, and don't burp.
Don't burp, yeah.
Because you're going to want to burp.
Don't burp.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
I'd rather someone fart than burp. I don't know why. I hate
I was
burps.
burping a little bit earlier. My bad.
No, that's all good.
I tried to blow it over here, but
I didn't catch it, so we good.
All right. So
Sleep paralysis.
So two things. Real quick plug. There's a company called H Factor, and there's another company called Trusii, Trusii, and they create these hydrogen consumables that, in my opinion, are fantastic. There are very few like products that I recommend, because I really think health is about lifestyle and personal decisions. But there are a couple of things that allow us to offset the damage of our. This is one of them. So there's that. What was that, bro?
Close. The silent one.
So sleep paralysis occurs as a function of you basically starting to wake up while you're still in a certain stage of sleep. So your body goes from light stages of sleep, like stage 1, stage 2, down to stage 3, which is slow wave sleep or deep sleep, where you have more delta waves. And then that deep sleep then transitions to REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement sleep. And a characteristic of rapid eye movement sleep is that your eyes are closed and your eyes are moving behind the lid of your eyes back and forth because you're dreaming, right? So dreaming occurs during REM sleep. One of the features of REM sleep it's an evolutionary adaptation is that our body is paralyzed when we're in REM sleep.
So you don't act out.
So you don't act out your dream.
Yeah.
It's a very important function of basic human physiology and sleep.
So I can't hit anyone super
Right.
hard.
No, and seriously. So the problem is that when you are REM deprived, right, you will sometimes. No, that's not true. It actually doesn't have anything to do with you being REM deprived. Sometimes because of particular drugs or because of alcohol, like prescription drugs even, you will wake up while you were in the middle of REM sleep. So you know that experience, it sounds like, where I'm awake, I can move my eyes, and basically nothing else. Shit's scary.
Yeah.
Shit is not cool, like at all. And so the next time that it happens, I would just think about, in this last week, what's my like alcohol consumption been like? You know, how much have I had to drink? And in this last week, am I taking any prescription pills? Like, am I doing anything like that? I mean, I would recommend, if you were asking me for advice, I would say you need to start taking a sleep journal, right? Like, you need to maybe even get one of these, and then you can just put it in your phone real quick, and then you would be able to predict in the future how and why it happens for you. But the long and short of it is that it just happens as a function of you waking up at the wrong time instead of at the end of REM sleep, in the middle of REM sleep.
Well, so dreams in general then, because you said sleep journals, right?
Yeah.
And we've had talks about this in the past, because I love having dreams, and I used to dream journal myself.
Okay.
And through the process of dream journaling over 2 or 3 months, not only did my dreams become more vivid, but at certain points I could actually, I forget the exact name for it, but control certain aspects of my dream.
Wow. Lucid dreaming.
Yeah. That's
super cool.
Yeah. So
I've never been able to do that.
So from the only reason that I think I was able to do it is because I would make such a point to write it down in the morning and try to remember every single detail I could. I was like writing paragraphs. I think my mind was kind of aware, okay, apparently it's important to remember our dreams now. So then tendencies in my dreams and certain things that would happen in my dreams, I could easier call them easier for me to call out certain things that represented dreams. So when I was in a dream, I could be like, oh, this thing usually happens when I'm in dreams. Oh shit, there's a dinosaur over here. I'm dreaming. And then I would kind of wake into that experience.
Wow.
So when you're saying dream journals, are you saying something similar to that, or more like I slept well last night?
I guess dream journals, more of a sleep diary than a dream journal. Yeah, because I really don't like touch on the phenomenon of dreaming at all, because nobody knows why we dream. Mm-hmm. You know, like there's some arguments, there are some theories about it. But it's like, it's another one of those things about sleeping where scientists are kind of just like,
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like some people make the argument that it's about sort of organizing the things that have happened in your experience throughout the day, right? Other people have said it's a function of totally random electrical pulses coming up from like the midbrain and the brainstem up to the cortex, and electrical oscillations traveling across the cortex. And because memories, long-term memories, are stored in the cortex, those patterns of electrical activation just traveling across your cortex
kind of
fire off a bunch of random shit.
Huh.
I was gonna say I don't really care. I can't afford to. I don't have the time to care.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, it's interesting to me, but I've never spent any significant time like thinking about it. I dream pretty much every night, which is one thing I do know is that having dreams is an incredibly good sign, because if you're in REM sleep, that means there's a significant body of evidence suggesting that without REM sleep, your memory is just trash, right? That there's something specifically important about REM sleep, or the transition to REM sleep. There's a researcher by the name of Dr. Gina Poe that's done some really interesting work with this at UCLA. Something really specific about transition to REM sleep, or REM sleep itself, that allows us to take memories that are short term, and then consolidate them from our hippocampus, which is where memories are formed, and put them in our cortex where memories are stored. So if you like interrupt somebody's REM sleep over and over and over again, you can disrupt their ability to remember things, or to create a memory.
Wow.
So real quick, the cameras are overheating. We're going to keep the audio rolling because I love this. And we'll bring the cameras back in when there's something specific to show.
Okay.
But go ahead, keep talking.
All right, cool.
How do you feel about coffee? So, you know, when motherfuckers really tired, it happens to me all the time, right? I'll go to work, or I'm on my way to work, and I'll grab some coffee like I did this morning. I grabbed some coffee, and it just, you know, kind of stimulated me a little bit. Is that bad necessarily?
It's not.
Well, coffee's, of course, not a good thing, right?
It's man, I will never have a simple answer for any of these. I apologize. Coffee itself may or may not be bad for you, depending on the environment.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think most people are better off avoiding it. I drink coffee. I don't want to drink coffee. You know what I mean? Like, I don't drink a lot of coffee. Like, I have one small cup in the morning, probably 5 days out of the week. Like, I mean a small cup, like
espresso.
Maybe like 10, not espresso itself, but like maybe 10 ounces of coffee.
Okay.
Yeah, so just a little guy. Like, my girlfriend, we make coffee together, and she'll have a bigger cup and I'll have a smaller cup. On I didn't have coffee this morning. On days like this, I realize that I don't really need it. I love the way that it tastes. I fucking love coffee. My girlfriend and I are kind of like coffee nerds. Like, we get like the small batch, locally roasted, organic, you know, micro origin. You know what I mean? Like
the real shit.
The real.
Straight from Colombia.
None of that. None of that,
shit.
bro.
Pure.
The 5 foot by 5 foot plot of land in Kenya owned by a grandmother. You know what I mean? Like that real.
Yeah.
And his shit is delicious, man. It's hella good. So I think that, you know what, I'm kind of hesitant to give any advice on this, because I don't really follow a particular. I don't really understand it as much as I should. And I don't pay attention to it in my own body as much as I probably should. So I'm not really in a position to tell other people what they should or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, something that I care about very deeply in terms of coffee, is that if you are going to get coffee, it's really important. I don't just source it like that because I like spending twice as much. You know what I mean? Like, it tastes as good. It tastes better, way better, in my opinion. But like, the quality of the beans is actually pretty important. If you go to like Starbucks or something like that, and you sample their beans, like if you do a laboratory sample of their beans, they actually have quite a bit of mold. Really? Quite a bit of these things called mycotoxins as well, that occur as a byproduct of the processing that takes place, because they get oxidized because of heat and the drying methods that they use. So I noticed that if I drink Starbucks coffee or Pete's coffee, or even the coffee that my parents have at their place, I get a headache. Almost every time. It's really, really reliable.
Is it because you're tolerant to what you drink now? So when you try something different, it's like
because of the mold, no?
I think it's because of the coffee itself. At least that's the sense that I get. And so there are a couple of companies that do really cool stuff. There's a company called Purity Coffee, and they make really good coffee that is laboratory tested. And they have all their laboratory results on their website, showing that free from all of that stuff. And they give very specific temperatures at which to cook the coffee.
brew the coffee.
To brew the coffee. Thank you. I couldn't come up with that word. But so like also like just in your cooking process at home, like when you grind the beans, you're oxidizing the beans. You're creating free radicals that are detrimental to your health. When you cook it at too high of a temperature, you're burning all of the things that are good for you. So you should actually, Starbucks roasts their coffee or brews their coffee at like 215 degrees, basically. But like anything over like 208, and you're actually destroying the good stuff that's in the coffee, which is why if you get a super hot coffee, it actually tastes different even after it cools down. Not just because it's super hot, it's because they burn the shit out of the coffee. Damn. And so I cook, Jesus Christ. I brew our coffee at somewhere between 200 and 202 degrees.
Damn.
My girl's got this like super fancy kettle, this digital kettle where you can set the temperature.
Oh, no way.
And it'll hold it at that temperature.
What?
Shit is tight.
Dude.
I'm like, we do not need to spend $100 and whatever dollars on this kettle. And I get it now.
Yeah.
Like it's like instead of, playing the game with like I need to turn the stove up, stove down, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Or just having it be way hot or get super hot and then cool down too quickly. It's just like 202. Right here at 202.
Yeah.
Just pull it off the little stand with the knob on it and
wow.
Away.
Well, I think coffee in general is kind of interesting too, because I feel like if you drink it, like kind of like you drink it in terms of like you love the flavor, but I feel like if people become dependent on the purpose of it waking them up, isn't that kind of similar to taking a drug that so eventually your body's not going to want to wake up without coffee?
100%. And then you actually reminded me the other thing about when I do have coffee, I always wait at least an hour after I wake up.
So you're already up and energy's flowing.
And I have to have already gotten sunlight on my eyes. I have to have already moved around a little bit. Like I'll make a coffee, drive to work, get to work, sit down at my desk, and then have my first sip.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like because I wake up, I don't need it. You know what I mean? I think that's a really, maybe sort of working backwards. It's better to think of it like this, is if you're waking up and the first thing you think about is I need a coffee, there's something wrong with the way you're living.
Yeah.
Like you should as a human be able to tackle basically anything based on your own biology, right? Like we are remarkably able individuals. So like if you're relying on something that you would not normally have in nature, like we didn't spend millions of years, right? Like drying out these very particular beans on these webs, and then like after a couple of days like getting them and grinding them up and getting water and putting it over fire and like all that, because for the vast majority of that time fire wasn't really a thing, and then like agriculture wasn't really a thing until a couple thousand years ago. And so it's like totally a modern advent that has the potential to be done well and maybe can offset some of the challenges of modern day life, but should be done with respect to where we came from. Yeah. And anytime that you're relying on something to get you out of bed, you should probably look at yourself. Yeah. There's probably something there that you should, think about.
Well, I bet having those cold showers too probably wakes you up real quick.
That's what I was going to say. That's the first thing I think about. Shower.
Yeah. I mean, I've never felt better in my life than I do right now, which is saying a lot, because I've had some really low lows. Like you and I have talked about some of where I come from, and it's like being on the other side of any of those experiences was a remarkable high, just because the absence of pain is really amazing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But right now I feel really dialed into my body, and that's for a guy that like does so many things that are actually pretty counterintuitive to health. Like I work at a job where I sit basically all day long, 5 days a week. You know what I mean? It's terrible for you.
Yeah.
It's terrible for you. And I do enough other stuff right now that I mostly feel excellent. Which I think is more than a lot of people who have desk jobs can say.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like basically everybody I know that has a desk job has a health problem.
Wow.
Like a significant health problem.
Huh.
Makes sense. I mean, shit, think about it. How you sit, your back starts to get messed up, maybe your neck.
Right. And the lighting environment the whole time.
Wow.
Humans evolved from apes because we started walking upright. Right, like the thing that makes us humans, aside from the mitochondria that we store in our heart and in our head, is our bipedalism. Right, we stand upright, and so like being in this position all day long is awful for you.
Yeah,
it's awful for you. I mean, it's really on a physical level, it creates physical stress that creates psychological stress, and that sort of loop kind of repeats itself over and over again. A couple of other great thinkers in that sort of space are this guy named Naudi Aguilar with a company called, or a group called Functional Patterns, and he's kind of an asshole, but in a great way. Like I say that just because like he's kind of hard to stomach for a lot of people because he's really blunt, and I think some people think he's arrogant, and I think that he just believes in himself and is sick of other people's shit. And it's like I'm tired wasting my energy. Like for the most part, I subscribe to this idea that if you can be nice, you should. Like if you're choosing to just be mean because you're too lazy to try to think a little bit harder about how you could say something nicely, then you're just kind of a lazy piece of shit. Like that's what it comes down to for me. But
I can agree with that.
You know what I mean? Like it's like if you can say something in a nice way, and the difference between doing it and not doing it is you like taking like another second to pause and think about it, and you choose not to do that, it just means you're selfish and lazy. That's all it means. Anyway, my opinion, you know, whatever. So I think Naudi is just like, he's brilliant. I reserve that word, you know, for very specific people. Like he's brilliant. He's totally revolutionized the human movement. And he's gotten a lot of like criticism and flack and ridicule from the fitness industry, which is this multi-billion-dollar industry that is really, you know, about aesthetics and selling supplements.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whereas he's offering people you look at some of his before and after pictures. He's like full-on fixed scoliosis.
Damn.
No way.
Like curvature of the spine. Before picture, after picture, right? Like people who are wheelchair bound, who are doing backpacking trips now.
Wow.
Sheesh.
Like nobody shows results like this dude.
Yeah.
Nobody, and it's not even close. Like you know, nobody shows results really, except for like, oh, I lost body fat here and I increased muscle mass here. But like, what is that doing for your function?
Well, it's funny that you say that because the whole reason that I got into personal training when I was a personal trainer was because in middle school they did the whole like eye exam, ear test, and they tested for scoliosis as well. They said that I had scoliosis, and at that point I was like, what? No one else had scoliosis. Excuse me. So not gonna lie, there was a huge insecurity involved with that because
I'm a little. Wear the brace?
No, not. Thank God. So when I was in middle,
doesn't do anything anyway.
For real.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
But as a middle schooler, of course, insecurities, whatever. So I started to work out because like, oh, well, there's a potential you could fix it through working out. So when I heard that, I was like, potential? Shit, let's do it.
Right.
And the whole reason I started working out since 12 years old was to try to fix scoliosis. Yeah. And I recently went back to the chiropractor, I want to say 2 years ago. And he was like, oh, yeah, your back looks fine. I was like, oh, what with the scoliosis? He's like, you had scoliosis? It's like, yeah. I was like, oh, well, nothing there. You fixed it. Yeah. I was like, damn. Of course, it wasn't like super severe, but it was there. Yeah. And I pretty much fixed it. And I was like, dope, mission accomplished.
Yeah. Well, the human body is a sack of bones, right? Yeah. Like held together by muscle in a particular way. So if you can activate the right muscles in the right way, then you can manipulate your sack of bones in whatever way you want. You know what I mean? Like this, and that's kind of the whole premise of Naudi. It's like, and first of all, that's amazing. And it explains why you're always in better shape than basically anybody else I know. But like, the reality of it is that is somebody figuring out something that's wrong with them, and then rather than, you know, even as a young kid, like listening to like, oh, you got to wear this brace, like just following your intuition.
Yeah.
Like, no, I mean, I feel like I can probably do this on my own if I just do a little bit of this and some of this and right here, and, you know, build strength to support that postural change. Mm-hmm. You know, I think too few people listen to their gut like that. Yeah. You know, and as a result, like, you've got a healthy body.
Yeah.
You know? Man. That's crazy. Yeah. But yeah, so now these stuff is just like ridiculous.
So what, kind of go into it a little bit, because I'm very curious after hearing him, like with his, so he obviously focuses on functional movement and kind of strengthening muscles to enhance posture or fix.
So I'm going to butcher this.
Yeah.
So anybody who is like an expert on functional patterns who's listening right now, you know, sue me. Naughty's work sort of rests on the idea that humans have, as a cornerstone of their being, a couple of particular movements, right? Walking, jumping, and throwing, right? Some things that really separate us from, you know, because there were hundreds of thousands of years where we defended ourselves by throwing rocks and spears and stuff like that. Like, so with that in mind, he thinks that all exercise should support those movements. And if it's not supporting those movements, then it's outside of what humans evolved to do, and therefore potentially counterproductive.
Yeah,
because
sense.
The whole body is covered in a web of tissue called fascia, right? And those, it connects, it allows for these sling systems that exist between opposite sides of your body to connect to one another. So I have fascial tissues from my wrist on my right arm that go all the way down to my ankle on my left leg. And the human body sort of acts like it operates as a vortex, right? Like it, the leg doesn't just go like we sort of move in this plane, right? The sagittal plane. But in order for that to happen, you've got rotations that occur at the femur.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, his idea that, like, you know, these one-dimensional movements are counterproductive for human health. And I think that that's shown by all of the injuries that people in bodybuilding and in the fitness world succumb to.
Well, I was going to, not to cut you off, but like yoga.
Yeah.
They do a bunch of like weird, weird shit, but like, you know, things that supposedly are supposed to help them, but those aren't natural positions to be in.
No. I agree with that. I actually did yoga for a couple of years. My girlfriend is a yoga teacher, and she has like sort of was that you?
No,
that's me.
All right,
getting hungry.
8 a.m.
There's I don't want to go too far into like her story, but she's had to reckon with, you know, seeing some of Naughty's stuff and having to, or like, and that being very persuasive for her, of recognizing that, like, oh shit, like, you know, I've seen, you know, like the practice of yoga is more than just like the movements, right? The movements or the asanas are just the physical forms, right? But yoga is also about energy. It's about connecting with yourself. It's about community. There are a whole bunch of things, and the philosophy of yoga. There are a whole bunch of things that are really valuable there. And I'm gonna stop short completely of saying her opinion, because I don't know if I understand it completely.
Yeah.
But I will say that as a yoga practitioner, she has come across these principles and found that there's a lot of truth there. And a lot of people in the yoga community struggle with that. They're sort of indoctrinated in the same way that doctors are, the thinking that, no, this is the modality that heals and whatever. But like, I've never really seen somebody get physically healthier in a sustainable way from yoga. I think I've seen people, and this is me, I'm not saying that it's not happening. People are going to be pissed when they hear this. And I did yoga for like 2 years, and I like was injured constantly throughout that process. Like, I stopped doing yoga because I was, you know, practicing handstands, and I fucked my wrist and my forearm up super bad. And of course it's about the practitioner, and it's about warming up and blah, blah. People are going to make all these arguments, and I get it. right? But I think if you look at the average of, you know, most yoga practitioners, most of them are injured or have an injury. And this idea of like being, I heard that.
Man, my stomach is going off.
I actually got to take a leak.
Yeah, no, do you guys want to take a quick bathroom break?
Let's do that. But real quick, just the last principle about yoga is I think that if the body is a sack of bones held together by specific muscle tension, right? Very specific tensions holding a bone in
loosening
part,
it up too much.
Right? Nowdy calls it being hyperflaccid, right? Rather than being flexible, you're flaccid, right? You don't have control over your body's posture in the way that you should because you're just generally vaguely stretching everything, which isn't a good idea.
Huh. Interesting. All right, well, we'll be back in just a second here. Thank you. All right, we are back. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back.
It was a great team bathroom break.
It was.
A little intermission.
Teamwork. Okay, but you were saying, so you kind of wanted to get into the fasting.
Oh. Because
I've mentioned it before on here, but now that we got the pro.
I'm not a pro, man. I'm a guy that reads a lot. So there are a whole bunch of people in the like fitness community who do this OMAD lifestyle, 1 meal a day. OMAD.
Time out. You said 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay.
Yeah. So
I have to wrap my mind around that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a break from the normal in the U.S. where we're the kings and queens of snacking. You know what I mean? Like we should be eating all day long, all night long. Sometimes in bed, and so there is a significant body of evidence showing that prolonged fasting, which can be more than just the 8 hours that you fast every night when you sleep, right? Because that's a fast, right? That's why they call it breakfast. You break your fast.
Huh.
Boom. I knew that actually.
Oh.
But that's dope.
So if you do like prolonged fasting, you are likely to turn on this process called autophagy. And it's a process by which, within the cell, there's this thing called the lysosome, and the lysosome is like your recycling center. And autophagy is this process by which, broken down parts or old parts from within the cell are taken into the lysosome and broken down into spare parts. And those spare parts are used in the future for, what those amino acids are used for other tasks later on, whatever. But autophagy is a normal part of human existence. It's important for us to be able to replace the different cells throughout our body and the different parts of our cells throughout our body. So there's some evidence that that process is helpful and is good for you because you're clearing out damaged stuff that would cause problems in the future. Mm-hmm. So that's one piece of it. And a lot of people get focused on that one principle of, eating sort of being this metabolically expensive and financially expensive thing, and eating fewer meals and in a shorter window so that the body has a chance to spend more time in autophagy and do more cellular recycling. So there's not anything wrong with that. But I sort of consider myself to be like an environmental neuroscientist. Mm-hmm. So I think about what may have driven the body to develop this adaptation, this ability to do that, right? So we have, in addition to our ability or need to produce autophagy, we also have multiple different ways that we can create energy, right? Mm-hmm. We can use glucose to create ATP, or we can engage in this process where we're using fat for energy, go into ketosis, where people are using ketone bodies to convert fat to energy. Okay, it's a whole other thing. Like being in ketosis is a whole other sort of corner of the fitness world. Yeah. And basically with that, where you deplete your glucose stores, which come from carbohydrates, simple sugars, fruits, grains, whatever. When you deplete the amount of glucose in your blood, And when you deplete the glycogen that's stored in your cells and in your liver, glycogen is just the stored version of glucose within every single cell. Then your body recognizes that and says, we're out of food. We need to start burning fat for fuel.
Yeah.
Right? Tapping into your natural food stores. Right? So the big question always for me is why? Why would the human body do this? And if you think about the way that especially humans that moved out of Africa like 1.9 million years ago, they didn't have access to growing seasons all the time. They didn't have access to sort of foraging and whatever like all the time. Whereas in parts of Africa, you can forage for food, or you can grow food, or you can fish or whatever basically all year round, right? But if you are in northern Iceland, or, you know, let's call it just Northern Europe, whatever, and it's November, and you are moving from place to place because we're not yet sedentary, right? There's no agriculture. There's no food storage. There's no farming. Fishing's not really a thing. What are you going to do for food? Your body needs to be in a position where it can maximize what it has for days at a time while you look for something to eat as a survival tool. And it's also equally important during that time that the body is making itself as metabolically effective as possible. So making yourself smaller, right? Because you're burning your own fat, right? And at the same time, you're getting rid of all of the stuff at the cellular level because you're in autophagy, because you're fasting, or you're relying on fats alone that you're getting every couple of days. So you're fasting more often. So at the cellular level, you're becoming more effective and more metabolically effective. So all of those things sort of fit together. So for me, like fasting and ketosis go hand in hand, and they should be done cyclically. They should be done seasonally, right? And it should, and people who have mitochondrial haplotypes that are from Northern Europe or emerged out of Europe are more likely to benefit from that experience than somebody whose ancestors are from Africa, right? Like, because your physiology has adapted to expect a certain environment and a certain type of food, right? And you will be best equipped for responding positively to those conditions. Okay. So for me, and all of this gets way more complicated because that's if you're connected to the environment. Right? Like that's if you're living a life where you get sunshine all day long and you're active and blah, 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 and you're sleeping well. But what if you live like this under blue lights all day long and you're at a desk job? Then what? And temperature doesn't change all day long, so we have air conditioning and heating and we just keep it at 70. So it's like people who say like fasting is the answer, or ketosis is the answer, or the Mediterranean diet is the answer, are all equally full of shit. Because it's condition dependent. And not everybody's condition is the same. Not everybody's environment is the same. Not everybody's biology is the same. So it really is a personal journey with figuring out what works for you. At this point, I think the one thing that I will say is most important is, you know, stopping eating earlier in the day is best, because that affects your ability to sleep. And eating is a daytime signal, right? You shouldn't be eating at night. It's not a nighttime signal, right? So the most important thing for me at this point is not eating once the sun has gone down, or not long after the sun has gone down.
So you don't eat dinner after what?
Not typically. No, like 8 at the very latest.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So if the sun is going down at 6, I try to be done eating at 6. Right. And I get home, because I start early, I get home from work early. I'm usually home by like 3 or 4. So I usually have 2 big meals, and that's it. I have one. Right now I'm doing the exact opposite of what I was doing a while ago, because I used to do the 1 meal a day thing. I would not eat until 3 o'clock. I would eat a huge meal from 3 to 4, have a little snack maybe at like 4:30, and then be done.
And energy-wise, did you feel better?
Oh, I mean, I felt real good, because one of the things that also happens when you're not giving your body food is your body's producing a bunch of stress hormones, because you're saying there's no food available. We need to be hyper aware, and we need to be active, and we need to be moving around looking for stuff. So that can become a problem over time if you're constantly stressing your body. Right?
Yeah.
So right now I wake up, take a cold shower, go outside, come back inside, cook some food, eat, go to work, have maybe a snack. Like I'm the kid that brings the weird food to lunch. You know what I mean? I'll eat a can of sardines and a pack of olives. You know what I mean? So it's winter time, so I'm eating a ton of fat. Mm-hmm. Like I just basically eat all fat animal meat, and like I don't eat. People are gonna not like this, but I don't think vegetables are terribly important.
Well, I've read a lot of research recently that vegetables aren't actually that great for you.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
so we know something as kids when we're like, fuck that.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. I think that there are certain, again, like the most important thing is eating with your season and eating with your environment. So like, if tubers and like carrots and potatoes and stuff are growing in your environment, then it makes sense to eat them under certain conditions. You shouldn't be eating bananas in December. You know what I mean? In Baltimore. Doesn't make any fucking sense. You know what I mean? Because under no conditions would bananas grow anytime in Baltimore, right? But especially like in the winter, it doesn't make any sense. Your body is not equipped. Because here's the thing. The lighting environment that you exist under, and this is, in an ideal world, like naked outside in the sun, the lighting environment that you exist under will determine how well your body extracts calories and ATP from glucose versus calories and ATP from fat. Right? Wow. So your ability to produce energy from a particular calorie source is dependent upon your environment and your connection with that environment. And your mitochondrial DNA. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, there's no simple answer. So fasting, good, great tool. I think it actually has some promise as a tool, as an early treatment for cancers, as an early treatment for Alzheimer's dementia. I think there's some interesting stuff there.
For sure.
But as I'm going to do this every day, all day, all year long, I think it has a potential for maybe being harmful. Yeah. And it should be cycled.
Huh.
For sure.
Interesting. Well, it's funny that you say that too, because Jordan Peterson,
I looked him up after you sent my boy Adam sent me some stuff on him.
Yeah, I love him, but he actually had a lot of autoimmune diseases along with his daughter, and he tried the all meat diet, carnivore diet, and he said all of his autoimmune diseases vanished. Yep. Damn. And his daughter used to be same situation. She was the one who put him onto it, and all her symptoms vanished. And they said, like, if they eat one thing outside of that now, they'll be like screwed up for a month. They'll be depressed. Things will pop up. And I think one of the reasons, not only because the all meat, but I think it's similar to fasting. Because if you're on an all meat diet, you're very limited to what you can eat. So you're not going to be eating all day long because you don't have meat around.
And you're more satiated for a longer period of time.
Exactly.
Meat will keep you full longer.
Yeah.
So I think that a big reason that his autoimmune disease kind of got fixed was because of something similar to fasting.
This is kind of off topic, but similar realm. I had a coworker who said he bought some chicken and it was bruised, right? And he's saying what he was saying was the stress that the animal was in. If he eats that bruised chicken, does he absorb
take on that stress?
Yeah, because he's like, energy doesn't die. And I don't know if this is all over the place with what he's saying, but I was like thinking about it, like,
I really like those kinds of questions because it's interesting. We have no fucking clue as
scientists.
You
know what I mean? It's like,
but there's definitely something. So energy doesn't die, right? It's just moved or transferred. Yeah, transferred. It's turned into something else or it's moved from place to place. I have one question. What is bruised chicken?
Or just bruised meat.
So you know how when you look at a piece of chicken and it looks like it's bruised, like it's discolored? So I think the greater thing that he's talking about is like, you know how people are like, oh, well, if the cows go through a painful death when being converted to meat, that stress of that death is still tensed. Because when a cow dies, right, and then like it sees the death coming, it tenses up. So that meat gets tense and all that like stress locks into place. So they're saying that stress of the death converts into the food when you eat it. So you're taking on that stress.
Might be a little far-fetched, right?
No, I mean, I like that kind of thinking generally because there's something intuitive about like, we know that, as an example, a stressed human is typically not a healthy human. Yeah. right? So we kind of get that like stress is bad, and we're getting the sort of premise there is that the quality of our food is going to determine the quality of our life.
Yeah, again,
and there's, you know, that is not. I would just give. It's not that is inherently wrong. I would just give it far less weight than I think most people would. Mm-hmm. And not to say that I'm like the epitome of health or anything like that. Like there's some things that I don't do right, and you know, I'm very open to the idea of being wrong. I've had my mind changed a lot. Yeah. But first of all, I don't know if I've ever seen a bruised chicken before. I'm like really caught up on this. Like I don't know what that.
Google it.
I don't know what that looks like. I'm about to right now.
Bruised meat.
Because I'm not sure what that is. My girl's gonna be looking at my search history like, what were you doing?
Bruised chicken meat. Here we go. Yeah.
Oh, it's like kind of bloody.
Is it safe
discolored
to eat poultry with bruise marks? Yeah. I don't know.
Chicken.
Looks pretty nasty.
I've never in my life seen this.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting.
Wow. Holy shit, yeah, I wouldn't eat that. Jesus Christ.
I think it's super interesting, though, that you kind of keep going back to the idea that, like, even with this topic, that there's so much more into building a healthy lifestyle. Because kind of touching back on the Jordan Peterson thing, like, he tackles a lot of things that are going on in today's society in terms of psychological health. And people always kind of pinpoint these certain things, and kind of like it's the know-all, be-all type of situation where like this thing is going to revolutionize your life. And getting caught in that kind of stigma, I feel like is very limiting, because even you're saying it now, it's like, yeah, well, like diet and this is important, but you need to do it all. Yeah. You can't, if you put too much validity into one single thing, it's just going to slow you down, because like, oh, well, this one thing is going to fix me and I don't need to worry about anything else. I think you get caught in kind of that trap.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for... I mean, we're just so susceptible to it. Like, we're trained to think like that. Yeah. You know, we build a world that satisfies really profound immediate gratification and like short-term results. And you know, just in the like, I want to look up a picture of bruised chicken. I can do it because I have the information in the universe available on my phone, and I can access anything right now. I should be able to I should be able to fix everything right now, and easily. And the truth about this, you know, particular dimension of health is that, like, I mean, in any dimension of health is, again, like, as complicated as this is, we know how to operate it because we built it.
Talking about his phone.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
No, I got him.
Yeah.
I was on the right.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm sure the audio listeners.
Oh, yeah.
The cameras
no
are.
camera.
Yeah. I was like, what?
Like, we understand how this was built, and so we can exploit it maximally. We don't understand how the human body was built. We don't understand, like, how human evolution happened. Like, we have some clues, and we have a lot of good information about, like, when things happened and, you know, all that, but we can't create a human life, right? We even with stem cell stuff, like, there are a lot of things that we count on the stem cell populations doing on their own that we don't fully understand. We just know that under these conditions, these things happen. The human body is more complicated than everything on this planet put together, a single human person, and it's the only thing that we can say that about is because we do not understand it at a fundamental level. And so this idea that a human mind that we don't understand would be able to come up with a solution for a problem that it doesn't fully understand, it to me is pretty stupid. Yeah. You know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it's again, I think it all comes back to money. Whether intentionally or not, like, breaking out of this paradigm is going to be so hard because there, you know, the pharmaceutical industry and the communications industry and all that, like, we're talking about hundreds of trillions of dollars, right? Like,
a lot of people's lives on the line.
So much built around it and into it. And that paradigm, it markets itself as as a toolkit that offers easy fixes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they get people hook, line, and sinker of like, oh, you have diabetes, you need this. Oh, you have cancer, you need this. And I think that the efficacy of that approach, regardless of how easy it might feel in the moment, it reveals itself in disease outcomes. We do a bad job. I think the American public and the global public in general should be pretty upset for all of the hundreds of billions of dollars that have gone into biomedical research. We just don't have anything to show for it.
Yeah.
Damn. So again, like, it's exactly like you said. People don't like the fact that it's complicated.
Yeah.
And, tough shit. That's the way it is. If you are interested in health, you really have to, like, sustainable health. It's my opinion that you have to really be committed to this idea that it's not going to be simple and it's probably going to change.
Yeah.
Because we know so little, and it's such a complicated topic that we're discussing. So you have to be willing to admit when you're wrong. Mm-hmm. You have to be willing to ask questions and look like an idiot. And you have to be willing to work really, really hard at implementing things, trying them for yourself, and doing your own experimentation. Mm-hmm. Not just like, I'm going to try this and this and this and this and this all at the same time and see what happens. But like, be strategic. Do one thing, see how you feel. Mm-hmm. Wait a month. Don't change anything else. Be a scientist in that regard. Take notes. Mm-hmm. Ask questions. Do the reading. Think about it. Don't be a fucking sheep. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody says something to you and it's like, oh, this is good. Why?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay. Why? Explain that to me.
Yeah.
And if they can't explain it to you, like, what business do they have telling you that it's the right thing to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the information that I offer up always with the caveat of, like, I could be totally wrong. I don't think I am, and that's why I'm taking the time to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
All of the information that I've gathered over the course of the last few years and the research that I've done, and just logically, the progression of how everything fits together tells me that this is the way of the future. And for that reason, I feel confident sharing it with everybody. Mm-hmm. But it still always comes with this acknowledgement of like, yo, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not simple. It's not easy. But everybody, if I make a recommendation to you, the first thing you should ask is why. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, why is that? And I mean, every time you and I have talked about it, that's been my experience. Like, Travis and I have talked about some of this stuff a lot. And he's always like, well, what about this? And what about this? And why isn't this like this? And oh, that kind of makes sense because of this. And he's constantly connecting the dots in that way. And I think that that's what ultimately yields a healthy person in the long run, is being willing to think for yourself, ask questions, and see if you can connect the dots, because everything is related.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the biggest things that I try to promote in general too, is the curiosity. Yeah. And kind of being foolish in that regard of like being willing to be wrong. And it kind of takes a strong person to be able to do that, you know, because a lot of people want to be that power position in every conversation. Right. But one thing that I admire in people like yourself, and people like Jordan Peterson and all these very influential people in my life, is that when they get hit with something that they, one, don't know enough about, or two, it presents an idea to them that they're like, oh shit, this is kind of changing my thinking. They're willing to stop and be like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Oh, wow, you're right. Oh, I'm wrong. Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Well, what else? And then they start to immediately pivot into wanting to know more about it instead of becoming defensive immediately, you know? And I think that's is a huge thing for any person trying to grow as an individual, is having that curiosity and that willingness to fail. Yeah.
And I have the same kinds of like people in my life that I look up to for that reason, because it's the people that I vibe with are people who are like, I don't need you to fucking know everything, dude. Yeah. Like, I don't expect everybody to have all the information.
Like, you know what you know.
Yeah. Stay in your lane. Yeah. And at the same time, expand your lane. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? Like be honest, be inquisitive, don't be an asshole. let that be that. You know, it doesn't have to be a really complicated thing. And I think that you're right. Like I was a real piece of shit. You didn't know me back when I was.
Dude, I've seen pictures, and if you don't mind, I would go into that a little bit, because just looking at the pictures and hearing what you used to do in the past, like it's kind of a story that inspires. You know?
I mean, so that's my license picture from when I was 18.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I was like.
Look different for sure.
Yeah, I was about 160 pounds, 6 feet tall. So like, I mean, the long and short of it is I was a fucking dope fiend. You know what I mean? Like I was a drug addict, and I started using and drinking super young. I mean, super young by my standards. I know people who started way younger. But I was like 14, you know, and I lived here. I grew up in Pleasanton, but the school I went to was a Catholic high school in Hayward, and so I used to take BART every morning. You know, to get dropped off at BART, take BART to Bayfair to South Hayward. You know, the 99 from Tennyson to, you know what I mean, like that whole thing. And I ended up rubbing elbows with a bunch of people who lived in San Lorenzo and who lived in Oakland and in the Acorn Projects and the Dirty 30s, and like a lot of people who were my age but had been part of like gang life and using and selling drugs, and something that I had been totally sheltered from my entire life. But I was so deeply insecure and so badly wanted to fit in that I was just like
intrigued by it.
Oh, I mean, and I would lie about where I was from. You know what I mean? People were like, "Where are you from?" I'd be like, "I'm from Livermore," as if that was like slightly more hard than Pleasanton. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and just like at the end of the day, the long and the short of it is, I was a deeply insecure kid who sought the recognition and validation, recognition from and validation from people who were around me, and the people who were around me were starting to be people who were like selling ecstasy, you know what I mean, and like driving out to the city to like buy shrooms from this dude that was harvesting on campus at UCSF. And like I went from being, you know, a kind of a secluded, not very social, you know, kind of overweight, sad kid to like overnight, like having friends and having money and having people who wanted to be around me. And it gave me everything that I had wanted growing up. You know what I mean? Like overnight. And so and from there, my life just deteriorated. Like year over year, just worse and worse and worse. I graduated high school only because I cheated my way through it. You know what I mean? Like I would pay people to take tests for me. I would pay people to write essays for me, like the whole nine. I guess I never paid somebody to take a test in class because it was a small school, but I did at least one take-home test. I paid somebody to take it. Anyway, the point is, I had no experience whatsoever with success. None, right? Like I wasn't good at school. I wasn't popular unless I had drugs. I wasn't popular unless I had money. I wasn't very good looking. I had super bad acne. You know, I lost a bunch of weight thanks to, you know, drugs. Bro, like popping thizzles every day. You know what I mean? Like wake up in the morning and like take a Blue Dolphin type shit. You know what I mean? Like really on some like just out there tweaker shit, because really it's not, I'm not taking pure MDMA. You know what I mean? Like
it's mixed in there with a whole bunch of other shit.
All kind, like I had as a 16-year-old kid, I started when I was, I might have been 17 at that point. I had an old Honda Civic hatchback, right? And technically you could fit 3 people in the back and you know, a passenger seat up front. Tiny little, like an 86 Honda Civic hatchback. And there was a period of, most of the time I operated in the red. Like I usually owed a lot of people money. You know what I mean? Because I was constantly taking my own shit. And there was one time where I was actually kind of flush. I had some money. Was doing cool. And I ended up over the course of like an 18-hour period taking probably like 15 or 16 pills.
Whoa.
And just like the whole time, like smoking and drinking and driving and like just, and I blacked out. Completely blacked out. I came to making a left-hand turn at the marina while the sun was coming up in San Lorenzo.
Oh,
damn.
You know what I mean? Like driving around, there's like the little rocky cliff to the right, and like driving to the left to the parking lot with a car full of people bumping, you know what I mean? Some Mac Dre or Hustler or whatever, you know what I mean? Just like just gurped out of my mind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like jaw hanging down and my eyes are all fucked up and I'm sweating through my shirt and that wasn't even the end for me. You know what I mean? But like that's kind of where it took me.
Yeah.
Of being like just fucked off.
Yeah.
Just like really, really not in a good place.
Yeah.
So got arrested, went to jail, got into a treatment program, stayed like sober for like, I don't know, maybe 30 days. And then started drinking on the weekends because I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. I thought it was just about, you know, everything else.
Yeah.
And got a job at Macy's, was working at Macy's, started, let's see, how much of this can I share? I stole a bunch of stuff and I got caught for it. And I signed a promissory agreement with the HR department, basically, that like I had been stealing a whole bunch of shit and they knew they were on me. Loss prevention was on me. They had an open file on me.
Yeah.
Like it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, began a restitution case with them. And just in that moment, like had a moment of clarity of like, fuck, man, like my life sucks. You know what I mean? Like this shit sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I'm 18 years old at this point, and I'm like, I graduated high school barely. I'd been going to junior college, but like, you know, I graduated high school young. I graduated when I was 17, so I'd had 3 semesters at Las Positas College. I had a .42 GPA. You know what I mean? Like, damn. I would go to class, and I would just, you know, I'd have decent intentions of like, all right, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do well. This is a chance to start over, and I would just fuck it up every quarter. Just stop going. Just too busy getting high to go. And I got to this point where, and I passed one class. I actually passed a radio production class. I got a C. It was the only class I ever passed in that entire year and a half period. I'm just lying to my parents and selling drugs and getting fucking pistols pulled on me and like just like all kinds of stupid shit as a result of living a life that was, I mean, just so deleterious to every part of my life.
Yeah.
Every part of my health. And went to my parents, and I'm an 18-year-old kid, and so I'm crying, man. I'm just like, I fucking hate my life, and I did it again, and I can't stop using, and I need help. And my parents, you know, they wrote me that blank check one more time of like, all right, we'll help you, you know. And I commend them, like the amount of courage that takes as a parent to not shut the door. You know what I mean? To continue to reach out and show up to somebody for somebody. Mm-hmm. I mean, I am just, you know, I'm here because of them, right? Like their willingness to help me even when I didn't deserve it. Yeah. So I went back to treatment, started going to 12-step meetings, and that was October 22nd of 2008. And I've been clean for 10 years. And that's you know, the rest is history. It's been a long journey of finding myself and figuring out what I wanted to do and changing my mind and changing my mind and changing my mind and then kind of settling on a path, you know. And then one other little story that I'll share that was particularly challenging for me was that I, you know, after getting clean, I was at Las Positas. I was like a 4.0 student, hella good student, did super well. I got full ride scholarship offers from Berkeley and UC San Diego. And I mean, top of the world, man. I'm like 23 years old. I'm in great, I like lost a bunch of weight. I was in great shape because I went from 160 to 280 when I got clean. I went ballooned up, you know what I mean? It was massive. I guess it wasn't quite, no, I take that back. So I was 280 in high school before I started using, when I was playing football. Oh, okay. I was 285 as a sophomore. And then I got down to 160 when by the time I first got clean, I was 160. Damn. I think I probably only got up to like 240 or 250 after I got clean, but it was still like an 80, 90 pound swing.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was, you know, they talk about in 12-step recovery. So I won't say the specific fellowship that I'm a part of just for, you know, anonymity's purposes, I guess, but, or anonymity purposes. But they say often, you know, like freebasing, cooking Coke on a spoon, you know what I mean? Or like heating up dope on a spoon for injection. And people say often in recovery, like, oh yeah, put down the spoon, pick up the fork, you know, because people who get clean, often they go from being so thin and then they just gain hella weight as soon as they get clean because it becomes this sort of transference of addiction, right?
Yeah.
Like, anyway, and So I was like really on top of the world. Everything was going great. And the only thing that had remained was I still had really bad acne that I just couldn't shake. You know, I'd done what felt like everything under the sun to try to resolve it. And at this point, I was like I was in good fucking shape. Yeah. I think that was the best like aesthetic shape that I had ever been in my entire life. Like here, I got, and I, let me pull this up. Albums. So I like lost a gang of weight. I got in hella good shape, but you can see like I still had like hella bad acne.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just couldn't do anything about it. I tried so many times. And
Sheesh.
Yeah. But I was feeling good, and so I'm like, all right, I gotta pin this down before I go to UC San Diego, because you know who knows what kind of women I'm gonna meet, and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like I really at that time it was just like I want to look good, and so I started taking this thing called Accutane.
Took that.
And yeah, and so Accutane was the common drug name is isotretinoin, and it was a drug that was prescribed in the 80s and early 90s for treating acne, and a bunch of kids ended up committing suicide on it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they gave me a warning when I got it too. They're like, you might want to kill yourself.
Yeah, and so when you get the drug now, you have to sign a contract with the state to get blood work done every month, and it's a whole ordeal, like just getting approved for the drug. But I'm 23, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I take hella good care of my body, I'm invincible, like nothing's gonna touch me, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I started taking this drug, acne's better in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
You know, like instantly better.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit red, and then within a month, it was gone.
Sheesh.
Gone. And I mean, and I had been working on this for years, since I was like 16, 15 years. I mean, the fucking pills didn't help, you know what I mean? But, and so immediately I got the solution that I wanted, but I started realizing, I'm like, man, I feel kind of like tired and like foggy headed, and this is summer. I'd already declared UC San Diego, and I was getting ready to move, and I was spending my last summer here at home, and I was, seeing all the people that I wanted to see before I left, and hanging out, and people that were close to me, I had started to confide in and being like, I don't feel that good. You know what I mean? Like like maybe it's just the pills, and oh well, I only got to take them for like 6 months, and then I'm off and whatever. But every month they up your dosage slightly. Mm-hmm. So I go down to UC San Diego, I start, and they up my dosage. And I go from being, like, it felt like overnight, I go from being a 4.0 student in recovery, healthiest I've ever been, and I'm failing everything. I can't, like, I'm having conversations with people and losing my train of thought in mid-sentence. Like I have dementia. Like I feel like there's plexiglass in between me and every experience I'm having. Like I can't fucking, like the only thing I'm feeling is anxiety and fear and depression. I'm not feeling anything good. I'm not feeling excited about the opportunity. Like I had sort of built myself as being this person who knew how to like show up for the hard stuff. I was a full-time employee, full-time student, worked in restaurants 30, 40 hours a week while taking full-time units, while being in recovery and in a relationship, and being in recovery, you have sponsors, and these sponsors show you how to work the 12 steps and guide you with their recovery. And I was sponsoring like 10 different young guys, you know what I mean? I was traveling all over the state, speaking at conventions, and I really was living the best possible life, doing everything that one could possibly do to, one, grind as hard as possible and take care of themselves as much as possible. I've never plummeted, like even with drug use, like I've never plummeted that hard, that fast. I fucking tanked. I thought about committing suicide. My liver started to fail. I was sick every single day. At one point I woke up and I had lost the vision in my left eye. Like maybe 30% of the vision in my left eye around the periphery had just decreased, gone away, like tunnel visioned. Shit. Everything around is just black and blurry, right? Like headaches constantly, like can't remember shit, literally failed all of my first round of exams. Had to drop dropped one of my classes, took a pass-fail in the other class, and then got a C in the third class. You know what I mean? Coming from a 4.0 student, I'm taking like easy intro classes. You know what I mean? Like basic shit. And I'm talking to people in my network, and this is why I'm a strong proponent of not everybody has the experience that you need in order to get better. You know what I mean? Not everybody is in a position to advise you on your position, because I had a bunch of people in my life who were very well-intentioned who were saying stuff like, oh, it's just the move. Yeah. You're just stressed. University is just harder. You know what I mean? Like, you just need to tough it out and be patient with yourself. Well, in the end, I was dying.
It was deeper than the surface.
I was dying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got off Accutane and nothing changed. Nothing got better. Still, it felt like there was a fucking fog around me all the time. The depression slowly started to lift. And then I found recovery from that in exercise and in meditation and in changing my diet. And I got some things right. What I didn't realize then that I notice now when I look back at that experience is that I was also getting outside and I was working out every morning. So I was catching the sunrise every single morning, and I was outside every single day. And I was getting more UV light than I had ever gotten in my life, right? Because I knew I felt like shit anytime I was inside studying. And so I would go outside and I would go study by the beach. I would go sit at a park and I would study outside. And I was tan for the first time in my life, and that's when I started to get better.
That change of environment.
Change of the environment.
Wow.
So, but I say all of that really, and I think the reason that you brought this up is because I say all of that to say that any person, if provided with the right information, has the potential to change their life in any way that they so choose. And when we provide misinformation, in particular about health and diets and supplements and all that, we're making it really, really difficult for people who want to get better to actually get better. We're robbing them of the opportunity to improve their own life because we're giving them misinformation. And I mean, I am not a product of my own willpower or anything like that. I had people who support me, and you know, like my friend Christy, I was at a meeting up here in the Bay Area, and I was kind of pouting about everything that had happened to me. I was home for winter break. And she came up to me, she's like, you know, I'm really sorry you're having a hard time, and, you know, I wish I could do something for you, but at some point, like, you got to stop being a victim to the story and move on.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to own where you're at and do something about it, because, you know, living in this place of, you know, self-pity and being morose and all that, like, it's not doing anything for you. And it's a delicate balance when somebody's in that kind of situation of showing empathy and also holding them accountable.
Exactly.
Which is those are hard values to hold in the same hand.
Of course, yeah. Some people can't
take that.
Yeah.
No, and I couldn't either. I was like, fuck that. You know what I mean? You don't know what I'm going through. You don't understand.
Yeah.
But eventually, like, I had enough recovery and had enough experience with taking responsibility for my own actions at that point that eventually those words, like, they settled in. Yeah. And it changed my heart, man. You know what I mean? Like, that one conversation, I think, was kind of the beginning of what ended up being a 2-year recovery process for me. Where it was like, man, I got clean, I did well, I finally, began to believe in myself. I'm gonna go back to school, and then I got there, and then I ruined my own brain, and now I'm never gonna amount to anything, and then recovered from that, and then that was also part of the defining experience of like, man, I don't want to go to medicine. I don't believe in this paradigm. Yeah. That was part of it for me. Anyway, so now it's like, man, I feel just like, I feel grateful for those experiences, as challenging as they were. I don't know if if I could do it all over again. I think that I would. But it's just like, I wouldn't have the insight that I have to now if I hadn't had those experiences.
I think your story is amazing, bro.
Appreciate it.
Especially because from the first part of what we were doing and what we were speaking about, and then to hear your background, it's like, whoa.
Mind blowing.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm from Oakland. I get off on Bayfair every day. I live right around the corner from Bayfair right now. That's where I live. And I see shit all the time. So a kid coming from Pleasanton, being in that environment, you're probably seeing all these people that are doing way different shit. You're like a culture shock. Like, what the fuck's going on? And to hear where you were, bro, and you're at UCLA, and you're doing your thing, man. It's inspiring, bro. And it's really cool, because I definitely did not see that coming from me. Like,
yeah, a lot of people don't.
I was like, what?
Yeah. I throw a lot of people for a curveball when I start talking about that stuff.
Very
Especially
articulate, very intelligent.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
man.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean it's really. I'm so blessed, bro. Like I've been, I've had the right people in my life at the right time, and I really attribute like the vast majority of my success to that. It's the right people at the right time, because I can look at basically any point in my life. And I can think about what it might have been like if, if these two people hadn't been there, if that person hadn't been there. And I see that, maybe it would have been fine. Like maybe it would have been okay. But like my road was made much easier by the experiences of those that came before me, that guided me, that held my hand and pushed me and held me accountable all at the same time while I was going through whatever it was that I was going through. So I can take, I say thank you when people congratulate me on where I came from and all that. And I mean it. I appreciate being recognized for that. And at the same time, I know that it's not all me at all, and I think that that's part of what really motivates me, as a scientist, even, and as a person and as a friend, where my inner circle is hella small right now. You know what I mean? I used to have a whole bunch of connections and I was all over the state and, whatever. And now it's like I have 10 people that I invest deeply in every week, because I know that my capacity for doing good in their lives might materialize into significant change. Yeah. Right. And so I've intentionally not cut people out or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I only have so much time, and I've had to be somewhat selective in how I show up for other people. And I'm not perfect. I'm so busy. I'm terrible to get a hold of. But even, I'm getting off track. My point is that because of the experiences of other people helping me, I feel like I have the same obligation to do that for others. And my best, I'm at my highest capacity for doing that when I am deeply involved in a few people's life rather than superficially involved in a large number of people's lives. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think your story makes you a lot more relatable to people like me, or people that come from the inner city, and not saying that you all the way come from the inner city, but you went to school in Hayward.
I got some experience.
You deal with a lot of shit that a lot of people from, I would say suburban areas don't deal with. Sure. So from hearing what you went through and everything, and the path you're on to be a scientist and everything, it just shows that you can go through tough shit. And still, come out on the winning side and chasing what you want to do.
For sure.
Because I feel like a lot of scientists and very intellectual people, they've never, or at least they don't open up to their past.
No,
so it doesn't make them as relatable. You know what I mean?
Science is not accessible to people who come from intergenerational poverty or from bad communities or whatever. You know what I mean? Science is very much so a privileged thing. And I don't take that lightly. My experience is nothing like somebody who grew up living, in poverty, who maybe didn't have all of their family around or whatever. You know what I mean? Not at all. I've been afforded so many opportunities because I was blessed by, the circumstances that I came from. Yeah. I do think I appreciate that I appreciate the fact that I can relate. I can maybe reach across the board a little bit better than some people, just simply as a product of doing some really stupid shit as an insecure kid when I was young. You know what I mean? But that actually gets into another problem of man, women in science and minorities in science are profoundly underrepresented. Yeah. You know what I mean? And part of it is because I had whatever it was that made it easier for me to bounce back. And most of it is the right people at the right time with the right resources. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so while it's true that I believe everybody can bounce back, I believe that. I also, I will not rob anybody of the challenges that they come from. You know what I mean? Because there's so much at play that I never have had to experience, that I will never be able to experience, that affects other people's ability to be successful, that I can't possibly just say, oh yeah, you just got to work harder and then you can achieve whatever you want. You know what I mean?
Like help is needed.
Right, for sure. Like that's our job. You know what I mean? And so when you
Yeah.
see somebody that comes from a family like that and you see something in them and you see desire in them, it's our job as a community to come together and hold that person up so that they can have the same opportunities as everybody else. Because when somebody has gotten a head start just as a byproduct of like being white in this community or coming from affluence in this community, like it's the job of the people with a head start and with privilege to participate in a way that levels the playing field.
Exactly.
That's the only real way that I can participate in a way that's helpful. Because the truth is you can do whatever you want if you work for it, but it's going to be a lot easier for me to work for it than it is the kid that grew up homeless.
Yeah.
Hell of different situation.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like I've seen some shit and I've created some problems for myself. You know what I mean? But I don't really come from a place of like, my parents aren't wealthy by it. Like my parents declared bankruptcy a couple of years back. You know what I mean? Like they live in a condo in Pleasanton. They're not in some like mansion. You know what I mean? Like I don't come from wealth, but I certainly come from a family that was like stable and supportive enough and financially capable enough that when push came to shove, they could pay for me to go to treatment. They had health insurance for me to go to treatment. Yeah. And not everybody has that. And that can be the difference between life and death for somebody.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So,
For sure.
Man.
Wow. Well, I think that's as much as I want to keep going.
I know. Great wrap it up.
I think we should tap out there. Thanks, Scotty, for coming down.
Great episode, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for
having me. I want a quick
me.
shout out for him, too. He's the guy who did all the graphic design for our logos and stuff at Roast Street Co. Super talented dude, graphic designer as well. Is there a spot? I know you have a website. Is there a place that people can get your information?
Yeah, just go to my Instagram account. It's at Level Ground, Level Ground, Ground. Yeah, I'm kind of a man of many hats. Like, you know, I just do all kinds of shit. So you can see my some of my portfolio. There's a link to my website there. And I'm always talking about like super nerdy health stuff and food because I like to cook on my Instagram account. But
yeah, and so one thing before we go here too, you sent me an article one time about the circadian rhythm. Is there, with all this stuff that you have, are you planning to make a blog post that people could potentially get on?
Yeah. So I have a document that I'm putting together for a couple of people on, you know, circadian biology and cold thermogenesis. Actually, for a friend who's dealing with some health stuff right now. And I need to make sure that if I release that material publicly, that it's very clear that I'm not a clinician and I'm not giving medical advice and that I'm citing all of the images that I use very carefully. At this point, it's just something that I'm building to help a friend make some decisions about their life. But potentially in the future, I mean, I drop wisdom bombs sometimes on my Instagram, so you should give it a follow.
At Level Ground.
At Level Ground.
Yeah. And also, can I?
Yeah, please.
So if you're interested in those blue blocking glasses, there's a company called Raw Optics, RA_Optics. So at Raw Optics on Instagram. And then there's that company Trusii, TRUSII, that does the molecular hydrogen infused water, the little tablets that you put in your own water. That's at Trusii, TRUSII. And if you're interested in learning more about like mitochondrial health, I would recommend Dr. Doug Wallace.
Doug Wallace.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is.
Cool.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.